Are you glad that America is back on track? Has it been a long, tedious 4 years? Are you ready to tell the whole world that America is ready to be America again? We have some announcements and some news.
There's so much going on. We have a very special guest who's going to be here during the conference. You know, kind of like a tech titan, maybe. Responsible for Doge. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, because thank God we're back to 2 genders. Elon Musk will be here on the CPAC stage. We just launched yesterday with the CPAC International Summit, where we had several key members representing from different countries with their delegations, where we passed 3 resolutions. Matt,
that's right.
Do you want to share what we did there?
Yeah, we passed 3 resolutions in support with one of America's greatest ally, the State of Israel. We were both saddened and honored to be joined by the families of those who have friends and family members as hostages by the evil Hamas.
And we have 2 of the hostages that were freed joining us today. And I believe they're here, right here with us.
God bless you.
America stands with you. America stands with Israel, and we will ensure that Hamas is eradicated. We will bring peace to the Middle East under President Trump. And then the second resolution.
It's hard for me to get over that, because that's just, thank you for being here. You honor us with your presence and your courage and your strength. And we have a president now in the United States of America that will not only help your loved ones, he's going to make it so that there aren't future victims, which we have to make sure we prevent. So thank you. Gordon Chang wrote a very important resolution. By the way, these resolutions were supported by all the nations that were assembled at our 2nd annual CPAC International Summit. We are working not as government entities, but as entities outside government to push for these policies. And Gordon Chang wrote a very important resolution to combat the Chinese regime, the communist regime in China. And I want all of these despots and dictators to know that Donald Trump might talk to you. He might make you feel like you're welcome, because that's part of his job. But in the end, we have a president that's going to stop you cold in your tracks. And all of these countries accepted that resolution as well. And perhaps my favorite resolution, I wish I had it here and could read to you on my phone, but I think I have the gist of it, which is we have a message to the globalists. Last year, Mercy and I stood on this stage and we said globalism, at CPAC, globalism was going to die. I thought that was an audacious statement. I thought we'd just say it, right, Jerry? Let's just say it. And then it happened. It's kind of amazing. And so our message to the globalists is, no matter whether you're at the World Economic Forum, the WHO, the EU, you can boo at any time, UN, no matter who is trying to tell you as a mom or a dad, as a church member, as a teacher, as a cop, no matter who is trying to tell you what pronouns you should use, how you should pray to your God, how much you believe your country is racist, all that's over. And a part of that is, and this is a great way to start, we just had Natasha out here and the great pastor from Arizona who was with us on the campaign trail in Arizona. Part of that is, can we all just thank God for giving us a president?
Amen.
Who knows how to lead. And I'll expand that to a great young vice president who knows how to lead. All these resolutions passed. I don't know how CPAC became a global brand fighting the globalists with people here from like every country all over the world, but let's go with it because it seems to be working just fine.
And I want to leave you with this. You are the reason because President Trump is in the White House today. All of you, each and every one of you, fought hard, stood up, shared this incredible, optimistic message that we need to save America and, in essence, save the world. So I want to thank you all personally from the bottom of our hearts as being part of this incredible CPAC family, because you all have made the difference in this past election.
It's the truth.
So we honor you. We appreciate you so much.
So, we've talked long enough.
Yes,
Let's get this
let's
show on
get
the road.
going.
I think you have someone big that you want to announce
All
that's
right,
coming out
okay.
here. Good luck. I'll be in the wings making sure you do a good job.
Okay, Dad. All right, all right. All right, gang, are you all ready? Okay. So, there's this young guy, with this beautiful family, with this beautiful wife that is actually just a shining star right now in American politics. Marine veteran, former Ohio senator, one of the coolest guys I think we have around, and one of the best communicators in this Trump administration. Can you please let us applaud together, let us welcome the greatest Vice President of America, JD Vance.
What's up, guys? How we doing? Hey, how are you? Dude, thanks for doing this. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
USA!
Thank you all. Thank you. It's great to be with you. It's good to see you.
It is great to see you too. I mean, you've been like on a whirlwind here.
Yeah.
Are you a little jet lagged or no?
Yes, I am a
Okay.
little jet lagged. So we did a trip where we went to France and then to Germany, and then we went to San Diego for a family wedding, and then back in D.C., and we did all that in like 7 days. So
Okay.
a little jet lagged, but that's okay.
Well,
I'm in a good place right now, Mercedes.
Well,
I got some sleep last night.
Okay, good. Then we're ready. We're ready. But it's a real special day today. You know what today is, guys? It's February 20th. That means our first 30 days, the happy one-month anniversary of the Trump-Vance administration. I mean, how exciting is that?
It's very exciting. It's hard to believe we've only been in office for a month, because I think we've done more in a month than Biden did in about 4 years. And thank God for that. But, the president keeps us on a pretty breakneck pace. He always asks, what have we done today? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do next week? Because I think he realizes this is a special moment in time. And by the way, thank you. Thanks to all of you for making it possible for us to do all the great work we've been doing in the administration. I know we wouldn't have been here without you, but I think the president is acutely aware that the American people gave us a window to save the country, and that's exactly what we're going to do, and thank God for that, because it's been a hell of a lot of fun the past month.
Okay, so I don't even think we can keep track of all the things you all are doing. In fact, I don't even think the press can keep track of all they're doing. I mean, they talk about the shock and awe strategy. Seriously. So when you're looking at this list after list after list, what stands out to you?
Well, speaking of the press, I do think that we've had maybe more executive orders than CNN has viewers each night. So hello to our friends at CNN. I actually think that their plan was they were going to go all in on anti-Trump and hope that he could save CNN in the same way that he did, frankly, in 2017, because nobody really watched the network until he became president in 2017. But that's maybe the one thing I think the president has been unable to do, unable to save the CNN's ratings over the last few months. But look, I think that what the president has tried to do is recognize that we have a historical mandate on a few issues. We have to secure the southern border, and thanks to his actions, border crossings are down well over 90%, and we're just getting started. He recognizes that we have to really unlock the engine of American growth. We've got to get back to having a growing economy that creates good jobs and high wages for the American people. And a lot of that goes back to drill, baby, drill. We've done more on energy under President Trump's leadership than I think any administration in history, and that's not an exaggeration. And of course, we're going to do more. And then I think the third thing that he's tried to do, of course, with the help of Elon and all the great folks at Doge, is ask, what are we doing with all of the American taxpayers' money, and why are we wasting so much of it on garbage that the American people either aren't aware that we're spending it on or don't want to be spending it on in the first place? Like, for example, the stuff that we've figured out, Mercedes, is unbelievable. Why are we spending money on progressive modern art projects centered around toilets in Afghanistan? That's actually something that your tax dollars were funding until very recently. And I think all of us are sitting around and asking, what the hell have we been doing with the American people's money for the last 4 years? Let's turn off the spigot and spend the American people's tax money on the American people's priority. And that's, of course, been a big focus of the administration, too.
Let's dig deeper into the immigration issue.
Sure.
We've seen, and you've met many of the victims, people who have family members who have died,
yes,
been tragically murdered. Those angel families in the hands of these criminal illegal aliens.
Sure.
What's your message to these families? What is your message to these horrific drug cartels and human traffickers who have preyed on the most vulnerable in the world?
Well, our message to the drug traffickers is get the hell out of our country. Your free ride is over because President Trump is back in the Oval Office. That is... You're not welcome. You were never welcome, according to the American people, but unfortunately you had President Joe Biden, who allows you to run free over the United States of America, and Donald Trump has said, you're terrorist organizations, we're going to go after you, we're going to wage war on you, and certainly we want you out of the United States of America, and that's an important message, of course. But our message, and you know this, Mercedes, our message to the families is President Trump cares about you. He thinks that it's disgraceful what your own government let happen to your children, to your grandchildren, and it's got to stop. And of course, we mourn with people, we pray for people, but we're also asking, as their government, why did this happen to your child in the first place? And the answer is that under Joe Biden, your government didn't do its job. Under Donald Trump, it is. Thank God for that.
On the economy, and I'm getting this question all the time, you know, it's this question of affordability, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress on our families, something that I think Joe Biden could not manage in terms of really helping lower that cost of living and making things just simply more affordable.
Sure.
We talked about energy independence being a critical component of this, of ensuring that we unleash this economic prosperity. What more needs to be done?
Yeah, so one of the first interviews I did, it was, I think, 6 or 7 days after the inauguration, and somebody asked me, well, it's been 6 days. What have you guys done to fix the inflation crisis created by Joe Biden? I'm like, well, first of all, it's been 6 days. We've done a lot in 6 days, but it's going to take some time to fix what Joe Biden broke over 4 years. And we know it is easy, unfortunately, to burn the house down. It takes a little bit of time to build it back up. And here's what we have to do. Because look, the fundamental goal of our immigration policy, of our border policy, of Doge saving taxpayer money, the fundamental goal is we want your children and grandchildren to be able to raise a family in security and comfort in the country that we all love. That is the whole goal of President Trump's agenda. Like, safety and prosperity, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty common sense stuff. And we know that to do that, we have to, first of all, unleash American energy. Now, why is that so important? Because look, we all know grocery prices got too high under Joe Biden's leadership. Well, one of the main drivers of groceries is energy. Because if the farmers are paying more for energy, then we're all paying more for what the farmers grow. And if the truck drivers who are delivering the groceries are paying more for fuel, then we're all paying more for what the truck drivers are delivering to the grocery store. If we unleash American energy, that will do more than anything to drive down the cost for the American people. The second thing, Mercedes, is we have got to stop spending the American people's money on garbage. Every dollar that we take in and spend, you have to pay for, either through taxes or through inflation. And if we spend the American people's money more wisely, if we stop taxing and spending the American people to death, that's also going to bring relief to all of the pricing pressures that are out there. We're going to make it affordable to live in this country again. That's our mandate. That's our goal. And you're right. There's a lot more that we can do, but I think we've got a pretty good start after 30 days.
We've got a pretty good start, but we've got this big, beautiful one-bill budget reconciliation scenario. How is that working? What are the dynamics that are happening right now in Congress, and what the administration is doing to ensure that a lot of what the president is wanting to do in terms of really pushing forward with economic prosperity and his tax relief initiatives gets done in these bills?
Sure. Yeah, it's really important. So the Senate obviously has its own approach, and the president has been very clear that his preference is to put everything in one bill.
Right.
And part of that is just simple legislative strategy. I think the president has learned a lot about how D.C. works. And I actually talked to the president about this yesterday, and he said to me, look, it's very rare that you can get 2 reconciliation bills done in one Congress, which is why he thinks we've got to do a lot with that one big, beautiful bill, that first reconciliation package that we're going to get through the House and the Senate. It's going well. It's early, right? This stuff takes time to put together. I think, if you had a record pace reconciliation bill, we would get this thing done in May or in June. I think we're on track to do that, but we've got to do some basic things, Mercedes. One, like I said, we've got to continue to unleash American energy. That's part of the reconciliation bill. We've got to make sure that other countries stop taking advantage of us. That's a big part of President Trump's tariff policy, is we got to stop being taken advantage of. Of course, we want to make the President Trump tax cuts permanent and extend them into the future. We want no taxes on tips. We got to do some of the things we talked about during the campaign. That's got to be part of it. And then finally, and this is really important, everything the president has done on the border, we have got to empower him to do it, not just for a month, but for the next 4 years. And we've got to hire more Border Patrol agents. We've got to give Tom Homan and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem the resources they need to secure the border. And just not to return to the border, but I think so many of our issues come back to the border, because if you take 30, 40 million illegal aliens, you take Medicare fraud, Social Security fraud. Why are we taking the people's Social Security payments and giving it to illegal aliens? We know that's happening in the United States of America today. We've got to stop it. If you get control of the border, Mercedes, you do more to control the fiscal problem, the financial problems that we have in this country than almost anything. Get illegal aliens out of our country, make sure American tax dollars go to American people. That is how you solve the fiscal crisis in the United States of America.
Shifting to your incredible speech at the Munich conference. Did you all watch that? I don't know. I think they
I'm
really
glad you guys liked it. Not everybody liked it. You guys liked it. Not everybody liked it.
So,
Good to see you. Thank you. I'll take a standing ovation for a speech I already gave.
That's
like
awesome.
2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's your speech to say it again. All right. But it was fascinating because there was obviously some of these European leaders that, they were a little uptight about it. It stressed them out just a little bit.
A little bit.
But you talked about the greatest threats in Europe.
Yeah. So, look, the greatest threat in Europe and I'd say it was the greatest threat in the United States until about 30 days ago, is that you've had the leaders of the West decide that they should send millions and millions of unvetted foreign migrants into their countries. That is the biggest threat to Europe, and frankly, it remains, by the way, the biggest threat to the United States because, yes, we've got 4 years of President Trump's leadership, but I guarantee you, if the Democrats ever get power again, they're going to try to do it again. We cannot rebuild Western civilization. We cannot rebuild the United States of America or Europe by letting millions and millions of unvetted illegal migrants come into our country. It has to stop. Thank God it stopped here, but it's got to stop there. And a related issue, Mercedes, is you can't just stop it. You have to allow European peoples, and of course the American people too, to raise issues about it.
Right.
You have to allow free speech to debate this stuff. You have to stop doing things to the populations of the world. You've got to give the populations of the world the opportunity to speak up and say, no more of this BS. We want borders. We want sovereignty. We want to be able to speak our own mind in our own country. And I guarantee you, if we don't allow free speech, and of course, the Biden administration, I made this point, Mercedes, the Biden administration did more to destroy free speech, not just in the United States, but also in Europe, than any administration in American history. I'm not even blaming the Europeans. I'm actually saying you follow the lead of Joe Biden into censorship and mass migration. Follow the lead of Donald J. Trump, and that's free speech, borders, and sovereignty. That is the future for our shared civilization.
And I will tell you something that is really, truly remarkable that's happening at CPAC and we had our second CPAC International Summit yesterday, and we have many of these conservative European leaders with us today, where we stand in solidarity because they have an opportunity to basically make Europe great again, make Asia great again, make Latin America great again. And so, in essence, I think your message was very well received by many of those conservative leaders across the globe. But what does this mean with the U.S. now that, in giving that speech? What does this mean with the U.S.'s relationship with Europe?
Well, look, obviously, we're going to continue to have important alliances with Europe, but I really do think the strength of those alliances is going to depend on whether we take our societies in the right direction. Think about this. Germany's entire defense is subsidized by the American taxpayer. There are thousands upon thousands of American troops in Germany today. Do you think that the American taxpayer is going to stand for that if you get thrown in jail in Germany for posting a mean tweet? Of course they're not, right? So the point that I try to make to our European friends, and I think that they're our friends, I believe that, I know President Trump does, is that friendship is based on shared values. You do not have shared values if you're jailing people for saying we should close down our border. You don't have shared values if you cancel elections because you don't like the result, and that happened in Romania. You do not have shared values if you're so afraid of your own people that you silence them and shut them up. So let's have shared values. Let's defend democracy. Let's have free expression, not just in the United States, but all over the Western world. That is the path to strong alliances in Europe.
We had Ambassador Rick Riddell with us yesterday. He'll be on the CPAC stage during these conferences. He has like 3 jobs, or 4 or 5.
Yes, he
but
does.
Let me ask you this. Where are we on basically the status of the Russia-Ukraine moving forward in terms of these negotiations in bringing peace to this endless war?
It's early, and I think what makes him such an effective negotiator, I've seen this in private, is that he doesn't take anything off the table. When he walks into negotiation, he says everything is on the table. And of course, that makes the heads explode in the American media because they say, why are you talking to Russia? Well, how are you going to end the war unless you're talking to Russia? You've got to talk to everybody involved in the fighting if you actually want to bring the conflict to a close. And I know the president does. But I'll tell you the goals that animate President Trump's policy. It's really simple. He wants the killing to stop. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe. He doesn't just want to stop it now and have the war restart a month from now. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe because the president believes this, and he's absolutely right. Peace is in the interest of Russia. It's in the interest of Ukraine. It's in the interest of Europe. But most importantly, peace is in the interest of the American people, and he's going to fight for it for the remainder of his administration. Wherever war breaks out, he's going to be the president of peace. Now, he, of course, is a very good negotiator, a very good businessman. He recognizes that a lot of these issues are tough. It's going to take a smart statesman to figure this stuff out, but we've got that in the White House, and I really believe that we're on the cusp of peace in Europe for the first time in 3 years because we have leadership from the Oval Office, and we haven't had it in 4 years in this country.
Matt and I mentioned this right when we started the conference. We're honored by the presence of 2 hostages that were freed after the Hamas atrocity, the tragedy that we've seen happen. And we have several of the family members as well who still, there they are. Where their loved ones are still being detained by Hamas. What is your message to these hostage families, these survivors?
Our message is that President Trump loves you. He hasn't forgotten your loved ones, and he's going to fight every single day to bring them home. That is exactly what he's been doing, and that's what he'll keep on doing. I was actually talking with one of my best friends about this a couple of days ago.
Can I be your best friend too?
Yes.
Okay. I think we all want to be your best friend, right? Okay.
But I was talking with him, and he was asking me. He was like, well, I don't understand. Why was Biden unable to do this? And then, like, the minute that Donald Trump won, we started to make progress in bringing the hostages home. And I said, man, it's just a question of leadership. You actually need a president who is willing to pick up the phone and say, you got to bring these people home. No. We're not focused on that crap right now. We're focused on bringing hostages home. And then when the negotiations hit a wall, because they always do, you need a president who picks up the phone and says, cut this crap out. We've got to make progress, and you've got to keep that pace going. It's leadership. It really is. And I saw it behind the scenes. And what the president did is he empowered, in particular, because this was before we were inaugurated. This is before we had our great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, or any of the great people around us. The president sent his dear friend, and he's become my dear friend, Steve Witkoff, as an emissary of the President of the United States. And he said, Steve, you speak for me, get it done, and if there are problems, pick up the phone and call me. Steve Witkoff, with the president's leadership, got it done, and it's amazing. And of course, we still got work to do. We've got to finish the process. But I really believe the president is as committed to this as any American leader in my lifetime. We're going to keep on fighting for it.
One of the issues that's central to the CPAC community is the issue of pro-life.
Of course.
And what is the administration going to do to defend the unborn, to provide support for those mothers, those fathers that choose life?
Sure. Well, one of the things, of course, the president got done during the first term, and I think that it's why he is accurately called the most pro-life president in American history, is he finally made it possible for the will of the people to speak on the life issue. And that was the Dobbs decision. What that did is it gave the abortion question back to the people. It took it out of the hands of unelected bureaucrats and unelected judges and gave it back to the people. And I think the most important thing that we can do, and as you know, Mercedes, I'm very pro-life, I'm a devout Christian, is that we have got to persuade our fellow Americans, because now we've got the power. We've got the power of persuasion. We've got to persuade our fellow citizens that unborn life is worthy of protecting. It is sacred in the eyes of God, and it should be sacred in the eyes of man, too. And we have to pick up the torch and fight for that every single day. And I know you guys are up for the task. I am, too. And I think on the administration side, what the president has said, and it's been consistent, it's going to be consistent in the rhetoric and in the policy, is we believe in the Trump administration that babies are good, that families are good, and we want to make it easier for young moms and young dads to choose life, to start families, and to bring new life into the world. That's the whole point of our policy. Now, some of that, of course, is supporting our great crisis pregnancy centers at the moment of these important health care decisions, encouraging young women to choose life at that important moment of choice. Some of that is bringing costs down so that, young moms and dads don't look to the future and a new baby and say, how can I afford this? And if they're able to actually afford to raise a family, maybe they'll start thinking of babies as the blessings that we all know that they are.
Yeah.
And I think... But I think fundamentally this is going to take a lot of leadership from the president on down, but from every single person in this room. We've got to persuade our fellow citizens to stop thinking about babies as inconveniences to be discarded. We've got to start thinking them as blessings to cherish, and that's exactly what I promise to do.
So now we're going to get personal. This is
Okay,
so
all right.
fun. Your faith.
Yep.
Why is it so important to you? What does it mean to you? Tell us why, when you go every single day to work, how faith is a part of who you are.
Well, first is I believe the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, it's not just a set of good moral principles, though it is that. I think the fundamental tenet of our faith is that the Son of God became man, he died, and then he raised himself from the dead. That is the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, and I think so much flows from that. And I think one lesson that flows from that is that we shouldn't fear death. Of course, death is a very bad thing, but there are much more terrible things than just losing one's life, and importantly, you could lose one's soul. And I think whether it's fighting for the unborn or fighting for peace and security for our citizens, I want us to be the kind of society where my kids can grow up to be virtuous young people, can be good young Christians, of course, because that's what I'm trying to raise them to be, and that's what our public policy is trying to do. Creating the space where moms and dads can raise their children in their faith to become good young people who believe the things that I do. That is what I'm trying to create, is the space for you, of course, to raise your children as you see fit, but the space for me to raise my kids to be the kind of young people that I think they ought to be. And the other thing that I take from it, Mercedes, is if you look at the long history of the Christian faith, we've been around for about 2,000 years now, give or take a few years, and there have been really dark times in the history of the Christian faith. There have been really good times in the history of the Christian faith. And I just try to remind myself that we put our faith in God above, we put our faith in the grace of God, and we try the best to do His will, and we don't worry so much about whether we're going to have earthly rewards. We worry about whether we're doing right by God Almighty above. That's what I try to do,
Amen.
And that's how I try to run my life in public.
You mentioned raising these children into good people and also into good citizens that
Yes.
can contribute to society and to the world. We had so many young people come out and support Donald Trump
Yes, we did.
and JD Vance
And thank you.
this past election. So what is your message? And what is your message to the young men?
I guess my message to young people generally is we're trying to make your life better. And that is the simple thrust of President Trump's policy is we want you to be able to buy a home. We want you to be able to work a good job. We want you to be able to raise your kids, like I said, according to the values that you believe in. And we want you to be able to build a nice life in this country that all of us love. That is what we're trying to do. And, you guys more than anybody, more than me, I'm talking about people under the age of 30 in particular, you guys are going to have to deal with the consequences of good policy or of bad policy for much longer than the rest of us. And I want you guys to think about the future and ask yourself, do you want safe communities? Do you want a prosperous life? Do you want to be able to work a good job? Or do you want that job shipped off to China or somewhere else? We're fighting for you every single day. We want you to help fight for us because we've got to win. Not just the policy battles of the next couple of months. We've got to win the midterm elections in a couple of years. We need you. We recognize that we need you, and we're fighting for you every single day. And I think, you asked me, my message to young men is, I think that our culture sends a message to young men that you should suppress every masculine urge. You should try to cast aside your family. You should try to suppress what makes you a young man in the first place. And I think that my message to young men is, don't allow this broken culture to send you a message that you're a bad person because you're a man, because you like to tell a joke, because you like to have a beer with your friends, or because you're competitive. It's our message, the cultural message, and I think the president's and mine is the exact opposite, but our cultural message is, I think that it wants to turn everybody, whether male or female, into androgynous idiots who think the same, talk the same, and act the same. We actually think God made male and female for a purpose, and we want you guys to thrive as young men and as young women, and we're going to help with our public policy to make it possible to do that. And by the way, I actually think, Mercedes, this is the thing that President Trump, this is why the media went after him so hard, is because, when I think about, what is the essence of masculinity, you could answer this in so many different ways, but when I think about me and my guy friends, we really like to tell jokes to one another. We like to laugh. You think of all the movies that were really popular.
Are you saying you're pretty funny?
I try to be.
Okay, President Trump, who's funnier? Who's funnier?
President Trump.
All right, there.
Let's be honest.
There you go.
He's got the best sense of humor of any American political figure. But I think this is why young men in particular are so, they're so inspired by President Trump, is because he doesn't allow the media to tell him he can't make a joke or he can't have an original thought. President Trump just says what's on his mind. That's a damn good thing, and it's a good example to set for young men in American culture.
I always tell my 5 daughters, I don't have any sons, but Matt and I, we have 5 beautiful daughters, and I always say, the most important decision you'll ever make is who you marry.
That's right.
Always who you marry. And you made a very important decision in marrying Usha.
I did.
And
I married up. I married up.
She is a beautiful second lady, and I want to know, what is the best advice Usha has given you?
Well, one
This is so fun. Okay.
This is going to be very personal. One piece of advice she gave me like a week ago was, you should be nicer on social media. I don't know that I'll take that advice. Some advice is good. Some advice is, can be good, but you don't have to always take it.
You sound like my husband.
The best advice Usha ever gave me, when it comes, she gave me so many good life advices, or pieces of advice, but the best advice she gave me when it came to politics is, don't let them filter you. And in politics, you've got consultants, and you've got media professionals, you've got pollsters, you've got a lot of people who try to tell you what to say or how to behave or, what to do. And Usha just said, just be yourself, be authentic, go out there and say what's actually on your mind, maybe a little nicer from time to time. But I think that's the best advice that she gave me, and that's why we take our kids everywhere, and that's why I'm not afraid to make a joke on social media, even if it's sometimes a dad joke. I forgive me, all of you who don't like dad jokes, but you just got to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's President Trump's superpower in American politics, and that's probably the best advice Usha ever gave me, at least on politics.
Okay, last question. What inspires you every day?
Well, one is my family, right? I'm blessed to have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and I can't help but see the country through their eyes. And when we were on the campaign in particular, and we would take our kids with us, all of my kids, when we were about to land in some new place, you know, they'd all rush to the window of the plane and they'd look out and they'd say, "Oh, Dad, this looks so cool." Like, you know, the beauty of the Arizona cactuses and Arizona deserts. Or, you know, we'd be in Texas for a fundraiser and they'd be like, "Oh my God, like, look at just all of that open space," right? Or we'd be in North Carolina and say, "Oh, look how beautiful the Green Mountains," right? This idea of these beautiful green mountains of Appalachian, North Carolina. We love North Carolina. And I guess what inspires me is you can't help but be hopeful and energetic and optimistic about this country when you see it through the eyes of a child. So I hope I never lose that perspective, because it does inspire me every day.
Well, Mr. Vice President, you inspire us every day. We are praying for you. We are praying for your family. We are praying for this incredible administration, for, of course, President Donald Trump, and we are honored that you are here with our CPAC family.
And I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I love you guys. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Beck, and I'm so excited to be here. You know, for the last 4 years, I've showed up at CPAC because God sent me there, the greatest God there is in heaven and earth. And we are so blessed. Please stick around and hear what I've got to say, because God needs you. He needs you to participate. He needs you to be on fire like I am. God has a way that He can fix everything, because as long as you've got Him in you, as long as you've given your life to Him, you too can participate in this. You know, the first thing that happened is I showed up in Washington, D.C. because God told me to go there. I had no reason, but He gave me a reason immediately. And when I got there, I met two of my greatest friends, Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Yes, the people that run CPAC, God put in front of me. And I have served God and this organization ever since then. And I'm honored to be called the matriarch of CPAC. CPAC has been such a major influence in my life and all of your lives, whether you know it or not. Not just your visits, not just when you come, but when you participate. You too could participate and go to the CPAC events in places like Hungary and Japan and Australia, Israel. But remember, God needs all of us. You know, 4 years is not going to last forever of Donald Trump. He's going to need all of us to stay powerful, stay in the show, and there's no better way of doing it than through CPAC, being a participant in every way that you can. God loves what they're doing. He has proven that over and over again, because He brought you here today. He brought you here to hear this message and know that there is other things for you to do, and God is in the center of all of it. So all of you, step up to the plate, do what I did. Make friends here. Make friends everywhere across this country. Reach out, speak your voice, and know that God is with you in everything you do every day, and that we are all at CPAC praying for you daily. I'm so glad I could be here today, even if I'm not there in person. And our studio is there, whether I'm there or not. Proverbs Media Group, you'll find them on Media Row. We want you to hear the truth. Just like the Bible tells the truth, we're going to tell the truth. We do this through so many entities. You can see us on any of the social media accounts, but mainly go to YouTube and look up Proverbs Media Group. Watch our shows. Learn what it's like to actually hear the truth. And we started our show, It's Not About Us, because it's not. It's about God, our Savior. It's about we are here to serve Him and each other. Serve your neighbors, serve your friends, do all these things. And we want you to know that one of our latest things is, you know that crazy iPhone that causes all kinds of trouble? We want you to know, and you'll find cards over there, that 3 to 5 times a day you set an alarm on your phone. Not on, when to get up, but when to remember that God is with you. So that if it goes off in the middle of something stressful, just say, God help me. If it goes off in a time that's peaceful, say, God, thank you. And talk to Him all you can. Have that reminder there, because we all get so busy nowadays that it's easy to forget He is with you in all things. We want you also to remember that, CPAC is an amazing place. It's where I started. It's where you can start. It's where you can put your time in and just show people love. There's so many ways to do it. Our people at our booth are waiting to hear from you and see you. Here, throw me that hat and shirt. Here's the Trump hat. Here's the Proverbs Media Group shirt. And know that we pray for you all the time. We love you. We care about you. And don't forget, you are the most important thing in the world to our Lord and Savior. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, up next, Tales from the Crypto, Bitcoin and the Digital Economy. Please welcome Strategy Executive Chairman and Co-Founder, Michael Saylor, and CPAC Board Member, Christos Marafatsos.
There she is. Good morning, everyone. What about that speech from our Vice President and our great Mercedes Schlapp? I am not as good as a moderator as Mercedes. Michael turned to me and said, man, she's good. I go, Mike, I'm not that good. But good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to be here at CPAC, moderating one of the most critical discussions of our time: the future of Bitcoin, digital assets, and financial freedom. We are witnessing a once-in-a-generation transformation in how people store and transfer wealth and value. And today, I have the privilege of introducing a man who didn't just predict the future of money, he's helping build it. In 2020, as governments printed trillions of dollars, where it weakened our US dollar, one CEO made history. Michael Saylor became the first major CEO of a US publicly traded company to transfer his entire balance sheet from cash into Bitcoin. Historic. That's incredible. That's risk. He is the largest single corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world, owning 478,740 Bitcoin, now worth $48 billion. Michael just didn't talk about Bitcoin. He bet on it. He built on it. And he led the way for corporations, investors, and people like me and you to invest and remain sovereign. He remains one of the most influential voices in financial and technological history, proving that Bitcoin isn't just an investment, it's a revolution that America has to dominate. Please join me in welcoming one of the most fearless and financial minds in our future, a champion of digital freedom and a trailblazer, Michael Saylor.
Well, thanks for the intro. I'm really excited to be able to address this group today because I think that Bitcoin represents the most powerful technology force for conservatism in the world. And I don't know that that's fully appreciated, but Satoshi many years ago had this vision for sound money and sovereign money via technology, via modern cryptography, modern semiconductors, the modern internet. And that idea of giving economic power to the individual in the face of the overwhelming power of the collective, when you feel like the government's against you, the banking system against you, the currency is against you, big tech is against you, when you're the little guy, when you're struggling for freedom and struggling in the face of overwhelming power, you need some advantage. And Satoshi created this network that's based on two principles. One principle is integrity, and the other principle is sovereignty. The integrity, we all know, is there'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin, and that's enforced by millions and millions of computers and hundreds of millions of people everywhere in the world that believe it's not okay to lie, cheat, or steal. It's not okay to distort the truth. There is a truth. There is a universal common ledger that no one can tamper with, no one can corrupt, not a nation state, not a company, not a politician. And that idea of a censorship-resistant, unstoppable version of the truth was a first in human history.
It was a first.
And then the second idea is sovereignty. It's like, well, if there is a truth, can you own it? Right? So with Bitcoin, the idea is you can own a Bitcoin and you don't have to trust a bank with it. You don't have to trust the city with it. You don't have to leave it in the custody of a big company. You can take self-custody. So we oftentimes say, what do you own? The only thing you own are your memories. Everything else in this world that you own at the pleasure of someone more powerful than you, and they can take it away from you via force. What they can't take away from you is your experience and what's in your head. And the brilliance of Satoshi was, what if we could put all of the money in the world into the heads of the people? What if what you knew was the password to unlock all of your wealth or protect it, and nobody else could take it away from you? And that's a profound shift, because what Satoshi did was gave us a network where hundreds of millions of people can own and control their economic energy in a censorship-resistant, unstoppable fashion. And that was an idea worth nothing for a year, and then it became worth $1 million, and then it became worth $1 billion, and then it became worth $10 billion, and then it became worth $100 billion. And when MicroStrategy, now Strategy, got into business about 4 years ago, it was worth $150 billion. And today it's worth $2 trillion.
And at that time, you were a software company, and you saw this as an opportunity, a different opportunity.
We were a software company, and we were staring at a quick death or slow death or take a risk. And, you know, when the COVID lockdowns took place and the interest rates went to zero, we had to decide, were we going to sell the company, throw in the towel, or could we find a way out? And this is the challenge that 40 million companies in America have, which is, if you're not one of the Magnificent Seven, if you're not Apple or Google or Microsoft, how are you supposed to compete in a world where trillion-dollar companies have all the power, big banks have all the power, big government has the power? And Bitcoin offered us the way out, because if you recapitalize a company on Bitcoin, you're not slave to the bank, you're not slave to the currency, you're not slave to the local politician that tells you what you can do and how you can use your money. Instead of having the central bank take interest rates to zero and keep them there forever, right, Bitcoin gave us a 60% return every year, because the Bitcoin interest rate is set by a global decentralized system of capital flows. So my company was able to save itself when we switched from Bitcoin, from the U.S. Treasury or the bond to Bitcoin. Our market cap increased from $1 billion to $100 billion. And our enterprise value increased from $600 million to $105 billion. And we went from a $500 million company growing 0% a year, competing against a monopoly, Microsoft, where it's hopeless, to a $50 billion company growing 60% a year that's part of the digital economy. So I feel blessed, and we are very fortunate, but that really motivated me with a mission. And what I realized is Satoshi gave us a way out of our conundrum. Satoshi gave us a strategy that makes a small company big and powerful, that makes the individual more powerful than the state, that turns the power balance between the collective and the individual on its head. And the secret to that is this powerful worldwide network that puts the individual first, that's uncorruptible, that anybody can join, that gives you unfettered, uncensored property rights.
Well, to that point, I had spent the last couple of days preparing for this and had a list of questions for Michael. And about 10 minutes before we sat down on the stage, and he goes, let's talk about why Bitcoin is conservative. Let's talk about why this is your coin and this is your industry. So, Michael, how is Bitcoin conservative? Why should it be important to this audience, the largest conservative conference in the world?
Bitcoin literally represents the conservation of energy in cyberspace. Satoshi implemented a protocol which is inherently conservative. If I send Bitcoin to you, I lose it, you have it. I can't create more. I can't lie about it. The thing that's beautiful about nature is conservation of energy. Conservative is based on natural law. It's based on the idea that if you just make something up which isn't true, you'll be punished. And the Bitcoin network represents that innate integrity and truth. So, you know, if you think about the world today, there's just an inherent force. There's a struggle between capitalism and socialism, between people that believe in freedom and free markets and those that believe in central planning and collectivism. And if I'm a socialist, I want to take away your guns and your money. And Bitcoin is money that they can't take away. Like, what freedom do you have if you have all of your money in a bank that can freeze it? What freedom do you have if you have your money embedded in a currency where someone can print 4x more of it without your approval and debase it to zero? What freedom do you have if you own real estate in a city where the mayor can put rent control on it or expropriate it, or the governor can tax it away from your family? What freedom do you have if all your wealth is in a business where the government can tell you you can't operate, shut down your pipeline, tax your employees, tax your income, regulate your product? And the answer is, you only have conditional freedom until the government changes and they just take away that freedom. And then when they take away your wealth, when they take away your economic power, they're going to starve you to death, and then you've got nothing. So Bitcoin represents putting your economic wealth in cyberspace. It's beyond the reach of the mayor, beyond the reach of the governor, beyond the reach of any nation state, beyond the reach of any other company that would do you harm. It is the first time in the history of the human race that you can bind economic energy tightly to an individual, to a family, to your company, and you don't have to ask permission to have economic wealth, to have money. And you don't have to live in fear that someone gets up on a morning and just takes it all away from you to power you down. And so if I am conservative, I want a family, I want a company, I want freedom Well, how are you going to pay for it? And if you live in a country like Venezuela and the currency goes to zero, you're going to be begging for food next week. Wouldn't it be great if I could take the wealth of my family and put it into a network that no one can loot, no one can corrupt, and at the end of the day, I don't want to gamble my future. I don't want to take my life savings and gamble in the stock market. I don't want to take my life savings and gamble that the mayor of the city won't just take my property away from me. I actually just want to own the wealth. I want to own my money. And Bitcoin is a way for you to convert your capital into digital capital that will last 1,000 years. Your country will be, your company, your country, or your family will be wealthy for generations to follow. You don't have to live in fear. And when you don't have to live in fear, when you have economic independence, you can actually stretch your time horizon out, and you can build an institution, you can build your family, you can build a life for yourself.
Michael, you talked about several things there. One is wealth, sovereignty, agency, the ability to come in and for someone, a mayor, a city councilman, to take what you have. We've seen that happen from New York to California. A lot of us have been subject to this. And then you also talk about leadership. We have President Trump. We have the greatest leader our nation has ever had. He's compared to George Washington. People love him. We love him. He sees Bitcoin, he sees the digital asset industry as an exceptional opportunity. How can America ensure its dominance moving forward?
You know, this nation became great because of the Louisiana Purchase. We bought a third of the country from Napoleon for a few $1 million. Then we purchased Texas and California from the Mexicans for a few million more. Then we purchased Alaska from the Russians for a few million more. We didn't even know there'd be $1 trillion of mineral rights underneath Alaska when we purchased it. They called it Seward's Folly. But what I'm describing is manifest destiny. If you want to create a great nation, you have to build it on valuable property. You have to know, where is all the money headed? Where is the future? When we bought California, we didn't know there'd be a Hollywood. We didn't know there'd be a Silicon Valley. No one really considered. In 1867, we didn't have a petroleum industry. And so where is the money headed in the future? The money's headed to cyberspace. Bitcoin is property in cyberspace. The manifest destiny of this country is to own cyberspace. And I think that President Trump understands the value of owning scarce, desirable property. If we go to cyberspace and we buy Bitcoin and the nation embraces Bitcoin, then all of the capital in the world, all of the Chinese money, all the Russian money, all the European money, all of the money from the 20th century, the money invested in a Siberian warehouse, the money invested in fill in the blank, anything you could possibly own in Africa, all of that capital is flowing into cyberspace. It's going from physical to digital. It's flowing from the 20th century to the 21st century. The 21st century is going to be 1 billion AIs thinking 1 million times a second. And what are they going to be using to move their money around? They're going to use digital money because they can't get a bank account. They can't get a credit card. I have to approve my wire transfers from my bank once a week. It takes about 20 minutes, and they ask me on the phone whether the money should move.
It's a good problem. With 478,740 Bitcoin, Michael.
The computers...
We don't feel too bad is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get it. But my point we've been doing it that way for 50 years. And if you look at the way the digital economy is going to run in the 21st century, it's going to be 1 billion computers thinking 1 million times a second, moving assets at the speed of light. Bitcoin represents digital capital. That network is $2 trillion today. It's going to be $20 trillion in 4 to 8 years. It's going to be $200 trillion in 20 years. Then it's going to grow faster than every other asset in the world. It's going to continue to grow. The United States should own it, right?
Is that the conversation? Talk to us about the U.S. Bitcoin reserve. Everyone, and we've heard a couple other coins being yelled out by the crowd, and people want to know, are we going to have a U.S. Bitcoin reserve? And when is that going to happen?
The way to think about Bitcoin is it's the most powerful digital network in the world. It is cyber power. If you want to dominate the next 100 years, just like the last 100 years is based upon dominating sea power, fire power, air power, space power, nuclear power. You want to dominate cyberspace. You want cyber power. It's the unstoppable network that no one can corrupt. And the use of the unstoppable network, among other things, is hundreds of trillions of dollars of capital moving from point A to point B. But the other use of the network is I can send a message which is unstoppable, and I can store information that is unstoppable. And I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the authenticity of an instruction or a document. No country, no company, no individual, not 1 trillion computers can corrupt that message. So if you want to own the future, you want to own cyberspace. How do you own cyberspace? You own Bitcoin, and then you run the Bitcoin networks. You mine Bitcoin, you own Bitcoin. President Trump understands property. He understands the value of Greenland. He understands the value of Alaska. He understands the value of oil rights. He understands drill, baby, drill would be impossible if we didn't own the land, right?
He understands American dominance.
And land is physical property. When I run electricity through semiconductors and I create a wall of encrypted energy, I create digital property. Bitcoin is digital property. You should own it. Your company should own it. Our nation should own it. It is the future.
In your perspective, how soon do you think we're going to be buying Bitcoin and have within our U.S. reserve at a timeline? Do you think it's going to be 12 months, 24 months?
I think there's an appreciation of the power of Bitcoin throughout the cabinet, throughout the House, throughout the Senate. There's going to be a political process by which we build consensus with the White House, the Senate, and the cabinet, and find the right way through. But, what I would say on this topic is the U.S. could own 20% of the network like that for free. The dollar would strengthen. The nation would be enriched. And the real promise is if you own 4 to 6 million Bitcoin, you're going to pay off the entire national debt. You're going to neutralize it. We can generate a $50 trillion to $80 trillion benefit to the United States people, to the citizens, to the taxpayers, and we can do it simply by seeing the future. It cost $6 million to buy Alaska. The payoff was $1 trillion. Just like right now, you can literally buy it for a song and dance. That's the opportunity. The risk is that you wouldn't want the Saudis to buy it first, or the Russians or the Chinese or the Europeans. And there's only room for one nation state to buy up 20% of the network. And obviously, I think it should be the United States. I think it will be the United States. It's a way for us to enrich ourselves and emerge as a creditor nation in a matter of a decade. It's also a way for us to ensure that we're the economic leaders in cyberspace and the digital economy for the next 100 years. And if we do that, every one of our allies will follow us, and then all of our enemies will end up having to buy into the network once it passes 10 or 20 million a coin, and they will enrich us.
And we saw that just yesterday. President Trump was in Miami, and he was talking about Bitcoin. The Bitcoin reserve is a touchy subject. A lot of people want to know what other coins within the digital asset industry are going to be involved. The U.S. does not just hold just gold and oil within our reserve. It holds up to 27 other trace minerals And so we're completely diversified. Do you see room for another digital asset to be included in the Bitcoin reserve or the U.S. financial reserve system?
I think the key thing to keep in mind right now is that Bitcoin is a commodity. It is an asset without an issuer. There is no company, no individual, no country, no entity that can corrupt it. It has reached escape velocity. It has gotten to the point where it is basically a freedom virus, a truth virus, a monetary virus. It has been embraced by $1 trillion of smart money. That is, $1 trillion of real money has been invested in the network. It is 99% of the digital power on Earth. It's fairly unstoppable. And so if you're going to capitalize a company or a country, you want to capitalize it on property or a commodity or a network which is beyond the point where anybody could change the nature of it. And so that makes Bitcoin the most certain thing in the digital universe.
And when you talk about certainty and when you talk about truth, over the last 4 years, we've experienced as a culture travesty. We haven't been able to speak. We've been censored. How does Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin to you? What do you see that others don't? And how can conservatives capitalize on the opportunity to take advantage and make sure that America is dominating our future, that we have the economic freedoms, that our children and our families in America will stay at the front runner of this industry?
What I would say to everybody in this room is if you want freedom, if you want liberty, if you want to live your finest life, you're going to need economic power. You need physical power, you need political power, but you need economic power. Bitcoin represents economic armor. When you put on the suit of armor, then no mayor, no government, no collectivist, no socialist can debank you. They can't take your money away. They can't impoverish you. Just like a gun is a deterrent, Bitcoin is a deterrent, because if you have wealth in Bitcoin, you have the option to move it to any jurisdiction, and you can keep it, and no one can take it away from you by a force of violence, no matter where you are on Earth. And so Satoshi gave us an opportunity. I hope I intrigue all of you with the opportunity, and you go do the research and determine for yourself how you benefit from it. But I just leave you with the thought that Bitcoin is economic armor.
You have, Michael. Thank you. God willing, we have as much Bitcoin as Michael one day. This is a defining moment for digital assets. It's a defining moment for our country. We thank all of you. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. CPAC is going to be at the front of the digital asset industry. We see Bitcoin and the entire industry as a significant resource for our country and our people. Thank you, everyone. God bless America.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Republicans for Weaponization Control. Please welcome Chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, Representative James Comer, Counselor to the President Donald J. Trump, Alina Habba, and your host, editor of townhall.com, Katie Pavlich.
Good morning, CPAC. How's everyone doing? Well, it's a wonderful time to be in D.C. It is my, I think, 16th CPAC. It is Alina Habba's first CPAC. Congressman Comer, how many for you? Twice. Okay. Yeah. Good. So we are here this morning to talk to you about a number of things, but most importantly, one of the most pressing issues of our time, and that is the weaponization of the federal government against its citizens. And we have no one better here today to talk about this than these two. Alina, let's start with you. You've gone from working for President Donald Trump as his attorney with the lawfare as a private citizen to now being in the White House and seeing how the government is still being used to thwart his agenda through the courts. So maybe just take us through a journey a little bit of your experience and maybe some of the differences.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, I always say I'm happy to not be outside a courtroom for once and have President Trump where he was supposed to be, which is in that Oval Office. So thank God for that. But I think when I came to, and yeah, my journey's been a strange one for an attorney, right? I always say this, you should not know who somebody's lawyer is. That should not happen in this country. And unfortunately, but fortunately for us, because we're going to fix it now, they really took a misstep in their calculations when they used courtrooms, AGs, and DAs to try and take down political opponents. When we won the election in the most sweeping mandate on November 5th, I thought that was over. Mm-hmm. I really did. Every state, and I think it was a lot because of what they did with lawfare. And then we got to the White House, and we started doing exactly what America voted for us to do. Cleaning up, getting rid of bureaucrats that are making money on taxpayer dollars, doing all the things we promised, and then again came the lawfare, and I feel like I'm right at home. So,
well, welcome to Washington. We're
unfortunately, the desperation is something that I thought would end when the American people spoke so loudly on November 5th, but they have not. They've just become more desperate, and now we've got them singing songs in New York and Chuck Schumer's holding beer cans. And
yeah, it's quite the scene. They're a little rudderless right now, that's for sure. So, Congressman Comer, you are the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, one of the most important committees that we have on Capitol Hill. And you've been working for years to expose the way that the Biden administration was attacking not just Donald Trump, but also the American people who support him. And if you look at what's been happening really starting under Barack Obama, when they used the IRS to go after conservatives, this is not something that it just started. It's been embedded inside the federal government by the left. So now that you've been through the process of doing oversight with the Biden administration, how are you now working in the Trump administration with a new government and Republican control to really try and change some of these things so that Americans aren't being punished for having certain political views?
Well, for one thing, I've had conversations with Billy Long, the new IRS commissioner, as well as Kash Patel, who hopefully in a matter of a couple of hours will be the next FBI director. Our staff's communicated with Bondi's staff, and we've given them specific instances of where bureaucrats have abused their power. I think a lot of times that these bureaucrats, they do things, and even when they get caught, nothing ever happens. And what we want to do, and what our committee wants to work with the Trump administration on, is holding these deep state bureaucrats accountable. At the very least, they lose their job. Hopefully they get drug in for depositions. But at the end of the day, we've never seen a more weaponized federal government. It's not just the judiciary. It's the entire federal government. It's the IRS. It's the FBI, the CIA. We've got other agencies, the EPA, I would argue. They've been weaponized. And all the people that Trump put in office are disruptors. That's why I strongly support him. And at the end of the day, he's going to get every one of his nominees confirmed. So we're going to work with them. Jim Jordan's committee is going to work with them. We want to get rid of these bureaucrats and allow Trump to pass his agenda that the American people gave him a mandate to pass.
Yes. So during the election, one of the big slogans from the left was, we have to do this for the sake of democracy. And it's becoming more and more apparent as the Trump administration gets underway with President Trump's direction
that it was really about protecting the bureaucracy.
Right.
So, Alina, the president has signed more executive orders than any president in history in his first first month in office. Today is the anniversary, or the month anniversary, right, yes, of since January 20th, since the new administration took office and was sworn in. But you have to, he can sign these executive orders, but he has to have help from the federal government and from Capitol Hill to actually implement them. Yeah. And now you're also seeing a number of judges trying to get involved to stop his use of executive authority. Can you talk about the judges continuing their lawfare and whether they actually have standing when it comes to blunting some of these orders and saying he doesn't have the power in the executive branch to do what he's doing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, it's a lot like what I spoke about before. This is desperate times for them. And I'll say this, I think that if you are going to fix a car and you don't look under the hood, how can you fix it? So what we're doing is taking a good hard look under the hood of where the money was spent, how it was spent, and their attacks, for instance, on Elon, we were discussing this. It's so baseless. It's so ridiculous. The fact that they're upset, for instance, yesterday, Governor Hochul in New York, that she's going to fight our administration tooth and nail for stopping congestion pricing. Congestion pricing in New York is ruining tourism. It's stopping people that work there from driving to work. Their subways are not safe. These people are caring more about their next election. They care more about their face on TV and their politics than they do the people they're supposed to represent, the constituents that voted for them to do the work. Unfortunately, they've taken that to courts. And we've seen it. We've won. We always win. We keep winning. I mean, even Chutkin said it. Look, if they had it their way, our guy would be in jail right now, and that didn't happen. And instead, we won in the most profound way. The American people are happy with what we're doing. And the amount of executive orders that we are pummeling on them is because we have that much work to do. We have to correct 4 years very quickly, and we are all committed to win. And we're going to keep winning.
Congressman, you want to weigh in on the role that Capitol Hill has, especially with Republican control in Washington now, to make sure that these executive orders are implemented in a way?
Right. I have a bill in the House. Mike Lee has the bill in the Senate. We're going to do everything we can to pass that legislation to expedite these executive orders and to put them into law. So whenever the next president comes around, they can't change them by executive orders, because what Trump's doing is what's best for America. It's common sense. He's restored common sense back to Washington, D.C. He's getting the government and the bureaucrats out of the way of the private sector, and we've got to make sure that becomes the law of the land. And I think the support's there in Congress. There were a few members of Congress on the Republican side in the House and the Senate that stuck their toe in the water to try to defy the president, to try to obstruct the president.
Rhinos.
Hey, well, I think they're on the team now. I think they got the message from their constituents back home. They listened to their people when they went home, and they're on the Trump train now, and hopefully we can drain the swamp and make America great again.
So everybody knows that Elon Musk has been leading his team of Doge and rampaging through a number of federal agencies in Washington, D.C., which we are loving because there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse. But as we continue to see more of what they're uncovering, yes, of course, we see these silly pet projects like Sesame Street in Iraq, for example. But we're also starting to see a massive issue of actual corruption that has occurred. For example, it was reported, I believe this morning by the Free Beacon, that Stacey Abrams, who was, Georgia's darling, ran for governor twice. She was involved in a lot of voter initiatives there, got a $2 billion grant from the Environmental Protection Agency after only managing $100 at a nonprofit that she started.
Yeah, it's the NGOs.
Right. So, Congressman, talk about what the Oversight Committee is doing with these new cabinet members like Lee Zeldin, for example, at the EPA to really root out this corruption and this infrastructure the left has built in D.C. to really push their political agenda on the entire country.
We're going to work with the administration. When they identify something that they believe is fraudulent, we will follow through with investigation, with subpoena power, follow the money. That's what we did in the Biden investigation. We got the bank records. A lot of people say, well, go after the tax records. Let me, as someone that's been involved in banking, tax records don't always tell the true picture. The bank records don't lie. And one of the things that we're working on, we go through a thing called the suspicious activity reports where banks identify fraudulent behavior. Banks usually catch when something suspicious happens. If there's an account that had a $100 balance, which is probably the minimum to open an account, and then all of a sudden they get a multi-million-dollar deposit out of the blue, that raises a red flag. And the banks report that to Treasury. So that's where we're going to be following the money. We're doing this now with Act Blue. And I think we're going to have some very interesting information to come out very soon on Act Blue. But we're having a hearing on March 5th with the sanctuary city mayors. We're bringing in the mayors of New York, who's not a bad guy, the mayors of New York, Boston, Denver, and
California.
And Philadelphia. And we're bringing them in. And these, other than the New York mayor, they have tried to obstruct what Tom Almond's doing and obstruct the deportation efforts. So we're going to let them explain that to the American people. But one question we have is, who's been paying for this? And I believe you're going to see there are a lot of government pots of money that have been funneling through these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations. And that's what we want to identify. Musk is all over that, Doge is all over that, and Congress is going to be all over that. And hopefully we can show the American people how abusive the Democrats and their allies in the deep state bureaucracies have been with their tax dollars. They have funneled this mass implosion of illegal immigrants into our country. They've housed them. They've provided free health care. And at the end of the day, I think you're going to see a lot of tax dollars were laundered into programs like this.
Sounds a lot like money laundering
Absolutely.
to me. So, Alina, when it comes to these NGOs, there's been a lot of lawsuits that are filed by leftist groups to try and get judges involved in stopping the taking away of the funding, or even giving Doge and Elon Musk and his team, who's a special government employee, much like Anita Dunn was under Joe Biden and others in previous administrations, to keep that kind of funding. But it does seem like there is a lot of corruption, not just maybe something that got lost in terms of going to the wrong place.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's very clear. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. When you have a line item of trillions of dollars that does not get traced to anyone or anything but entities that are run by family members of bureaucrats, that's a problem. You don't have to be a lawyer to know that ain't good. Yeah. And the end of the day, look, even yesterday, they tried to file these restraining orders. There was a bunch of individuals that said, oh, we're being hurt by this, and it was denied. And that was actually by a very liberal judge in D.C. Who sat on a lot of the January 6th issues for President Trump and other people. Look, at the end of, this is what I can say. We have been, I think there's 70 lawsuits that have been filed. And I was speaking to Elon, and I said, you should put in Times Square a ticker. It'll say on the top how much money you're saving, and then on the bottom we're going to put one about how many lawsuits get filed. One will go up, one will go down very quickly. But they do that when we're winning and when we're hitting them where it hurts. So desperate times call for desperate measures. You see all these AGs and DAs trying to come in. You see individuals, but they're not winning. And the only people that are winning right now are American people.
Right. The taxpayer.
We are winning.
And it happens to be tax season, so everybody's filing their taxes, going, if I don't pay the correct amount or miss a couple cents, they'll threaten to throw me in prison. And now's a great time.
Well, don't worry, we're firing a bunch of the IRS today, so don't worry.
That's great.
But that was the stuff that they did, and America didn't like it.
Yeah.
You're funneling people to audit and hurt the American people. Why don't we audit the people that are hurting us?
Exactly.
It's not supposed to go the other way. We're not supposed to hurt each other.
Yeah.
And that's really the mission, and President Trump said just yesterday, I was with him and he was speaking at an economic forum, and he said, look, we hope to take 20% of what Doge has recovered, that is billions and billions of dollars, and put that money back to the American people who were hurt by the last administration, who can't buy eggs because they went off and killed all the chickens. But, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we have to get back to common sense.
So, Congressman, how can Republicans on Capitol Hill, with their slim majority, work to codify these Doge cuts into law? Because you keep hearing people saying, well, Congress has to decide because they hold the purse strings. So now you guys have lots of examples inside a lot of these agencies about where these things that have been approved through Congress are going. How do you make sure it's not just, we see it It's a problem, but we're going to keep going.
The first step is to pass my bill and Mike Lee's bill that expedites this and will allow Congress to codify all the executive orders. Secondly, we've got to follow this up with a budget, with President Trump's budget proposal. We've got to cut spending. We've got to ensure that the tax cuts are renewed. This budget reconciliation bill is huge, and the reason this needs to be a very large bill is because this is the only vehicle that you can pass through the Senate that only takes 51 votes. If we have to depend on Democrats, we might get Fetterman, and that's it. We're still going to be 6 votes short.
Still a long shot.
Yeah, that's a long shot. I wouldn't want to hold my breath on that. But we've got to do it on this reconciliation bill. We've got to renew the tax cuts. We've got to put in the tax cuts that President Trump promised, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and put this whole agenda in and cut the bureaucracy and watch America grow. Watch this country take off. Once you get the government off the backs of the private sector, the entrepreneurial spirit in America will flourish. Americans will prosper, and I think Americans will start to regain a little confidence in their government again, all because of President Trump's mandate and because of the work that everyone in this room did to get President Trump elected.
And deregulation, of course, is a big one. The president has promised for every new regulation they will eliminate 10 of them. We only have a few minutes left. Alina, you're new to Washington, D.C., new to the world of politics.
Yeah.
Final thoughts about the next 4 years here and your new gig.
First of all, it's so exciting. I never thought I would live in the swamp that I hit on TV every day, but here we are. And I knew he was going to win. I wasn't sure if I was going to come, but I'm glad I did. I mean, it is such a blessing to be in the West Wing with the greatest president that I've ever seen in my lifetime. In the past, I mean, it is the greatest joy. And having been there with him through the fight to get here, I think is why we fight so hard. I go to work every day. It is a blessing. I fight for the American people every day now. And I had been started fighting for President Trump, but now it's for all of you. And it's an honor. I mean, I've gotten to do things like child trafficking issues, and I'm speaking to the Middle East. And you have a platform to help not just America be strong, but help the world be peaceful and great. And it's really America's strength that runs that. And I'm excited. It's been a real blessing, and God's given me a real chance to do some change with President Trump. I'm excited.
Congressman Comer, what's next? I know that you guys have a lot. You mentioned the Sanctuary City hearing on March 5th. People can tune in for that. But final thoughts from you about where we're going here as Republicans control the government.
Well, we've got to stick together. I'm seeing more coordination between the House and the Senate than I've seen in the 8 years that I've been in Congress. This is because we have a strong president. We have a strong president that's put in disruptors. The members of Congress that don't like that love the status quo, they went back home during Christmas break. They went back home after the first weekend when Trump started making his proposals and putting his people in place, and they heard from their constituents. And the American people support President Trump's agenda. And I think Congress understands that. I think even the members that we sometimes get frustrated with in the House and the Senate, I think everybody's on board. The president's popular, and the people have delivered a message. So hopefully we're going to be able to pass his agenda. And I think that the savings that DOJ is finding, it's just ironic that the Democrats are exposing their true colors. They are obsessed with Elon Musk. They have lost their mind over Elon Musk. And that is the hill they've chosen to die on, to protect the bureaucracy when the Republicans, being led by President Trump, want to end the bureaucracy. So I think we're going to get a lot done, and it's all because of President Trump.
Yeah, they're destroying their infrastructure, and they're very afraid about what their political future looks like. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights today. We will be watching all of it. CPAC, have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for coming.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Every institution today is under attack. The home, the church, the government. And many people are asking, what is the truth? Jesus Christ claimed the ultimate truth. Are you willing to face the truth?
Do you think the MKUltra project ever actually ended?
The Central Intelligence Agency is actively involved in mind manipulation.
We all answer to one God and one Savior, and He's there to change your life for the better.
Freedom, sovereignty, prosperity. The Patriots for Europe Foundation is on a mission to make Europe great again. Globalist elites have led Europe into a dead-end street. Violent crime has surged because of mass immigration. The Green Deal has put the future of the European economy at risk. Fake NGOs and the massive bureaucracy in Brussels are interfering in our democracies. Patriots must take action. We bring analysis, we organize debates, we build the network of patriots to challenge the woke narrative head on. Patriots for Europe Foundation.
Hey, we have a great group of sponsors down at CPAC Central. Make sure you go down there, get all the merchandise you need, see all the companies that are fighting the woke crap in the country, hear from our breakout panelists and speakers, hear Steve Bannon, hear everything that's important at CPAC. Get down to CPAC Central today.
Before the cabinet room, you saw Donald Trump's next cabinet make waves at CPAC.
I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president. Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He says, you should run for politics. He's the one who said you should run.
For the presidency of the United States.
It is my honor to introduce to CPAC 2017 our president, Donald Trump.
First of all, I want to thank Matt Schlapp and his very, very incredible wife and boss, Mercedes, who have been fantastic friends and supporters, and so great when I watch them on television defending me. Nobody has a chance. I love this place. Love you people. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you. We know that there are still more records to be shattered, new summits to be scaled, more triumphs to be realized, and more amazing history just waiting to be written. The American adventure has only just begun. God bless America, and we will see you next year. Thank you very much. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's fantastic to be back in America. And it's fantastic to be back at CPAC for the second year in a row. But last year, there was a dark cloud hanging over this conference. It was called Joe Biden. And this year, we are now under the leadership of President Donald Trump. This is truly the golden age of America. But I'm sad to report that Britain is in the dark age. We have a socialist government, commissars ruling over us, who are leading our country in a terrible direction. But what I want to say today is they are not the only problem. The current establishment stooges in Whitehall and Westminster are only the latest iteration of Britain going wrong for the past few decades. Because let's be honest, Britain isn't working. The British system is deeply rotten. Britain is becoming a failed state. We've got people who are being arrested and locked up for posting on X and Facebook. We've seen tens of thousands of girls as young as 12 raped, tortured, and even killed by Pakistani grooming gangs. And yet many of those perpetrators have not been brought to justice. In fact, those crimes have been covered up, and we know that the authorities colluded. We know there was police collusion, and we know there was collusion from the local council. We have a massive problem with illegal immigration, but yet we can't even deport people who are criminals from our country because of human rights. One example was an immigrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo who had sexually abused his own stepdaughter. But he was allowed to stay in Britain on the basis of the right to family life. How disgusting. A criminal from Albania was allowed to stay in Britain because his son didn't like the kind of chicken nuggets they sell abroad, and I'm not joking you there. But it's not just a problem we have with mass migration and illegal immigration. We've also got a problem with our energy in Britain. So in Britain, fracking has been banned. I was the only Prime Minister who allowed fracking. Sadly, I wasn't in office long enough to actually make it happen. We have net zero policies that have decimated our oil and gas industry. The net result is we have the highest energy prices in the developed world. And in Britain, we've just seen the last steel plant close down last year. We cannot produce our own steel anymore. We have an economic orthodoxy, a Bank of England, that has printed vast amounts of money. They've created rampant inflation. They've wasted billions of taxpayer pounds. If they weren't the government, it would be called a heist. Yet in none of these cases, have any of these people, any of these authorities been held to account for the fact they have completely failed. And we're in a situation where Britain is almost bankrupt, morally, socially, and economically. And I think people in this room might want to know, how on earth has this happened? This is the country that invented parliamentary democracy. It's the country of the Magna Carta. It's the country of the Bill of Rights. We protected freedom of the press back in 1695, almost 100 years before the First Amendment. How on earth can the country of Adam Smith and the Industrial Revolution be deindustrializing? It doesn't make any sense. And the answer is that everything that made Britain great is being destroyed by an establishment that hates Britain and hates the West. Like in most of Europe, our universities, our institutions, and our corporations have been taken over by anti-West ideology. Islamism, green extremism, anti-capitalism, wokery, transgenderism, you name it, they've adopted it. And what we've seen is a massive failure of leaders in Europe to push back against this, because this is not something the population wanted. This is not something the people in Britain or Europe voted for. This is something that was imposed from above. And what happened is that democratically elected politicians handed vast amounts of power over to the unelected and the unaccountable. In Britain, Tony Blair in particular trashed centuries of liberty by creating a tyranny of technocrats. He created an unaccountable Supreme Court, which had never existed in Britain before. He created a much deeper and powerful state that is not held to account. He also handed vast powers over to an alphabet soup of international bodies, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the ECHR, all of whom nobody could vote in and nobody could vote out. And all of those bodies, as you've seen in the United States of America, have been captured by the same anti-West ideology. But what I find really incredible, really incredible, is it wasn't just China and Iran and Russia that were funding these NGOs, funding these anti-West groups. It was actually the United States of America under President Joe Biden through USAID. Now, did you know that American taxpayer dollars was funding the BBC? Did you know that they were funding the Tony Blair Institute? Did you know that they were funding Rory Stewart's wife? It's incredible. We thought you were our friends, but you were actually, American taxpayers were funding this anti-West ideology. And the problem is, when the people in Britain voted for something different, when they tried to change the government, when they tried to change the system in 2016, in 2019, and in 2024, they found the same people were still in power. The bureaucracy had not changed. And it's no surprise that young people are losing their faith in democracy because they don't believe it can change things. And amazingly, during all of this, many so-called conservatives went along with the ideology. They were busy hugging Greta Thunberg. They were putting up taxes. I'm not joking about that. They were putting up taxes. They were increasing immigration. They were pursuing transgender ideology. And it's no wonder that the Conservative Party had its worst defeat since 1834. Patriotic Brits have had enough. They've had enough. And we look across the Atlantic with envy. We see President Trump in the Oval Office signing off executive orders, and we want some of that in Britain. We want drill, baby, drill. We want men banned from women's bathrooms and women's sports. We want illegal immigrants deported. We want taxes to be cut. We want a Trump revolution in Britain. We want to flood the zone. We want Elon and his nerd army of muskrats examining the British deep state. Ladies and gentlemen, we missed the first American Revolution in 1776. In fact, it was actually a revolution against us. But we want to be part of the second American Revolution. We want to dismantle the British deep state, which is older and more entrenched than the American one. We need a great restoration bill to repeal all of the terrible Blair laws the Equality Act, the Climate Change Act, the Human Rights Act, the Constitutional Reform Act. We need to eradicate judicial activism in Britain and restore parliamentary sovereignty. We want our government run by the executive, not by the bureaucracy. But most of all, what we need is we need to restore free speech. This is the lifeblood of our democracy. And JD Vance is right. Vice President Vance is right. Free speech is in retreat in Britain and in Europe. To Europe's governments, particularly Britain, they see George Orwell's 1984 as an instruction manual. Look at the evidence. A British citizen was arrested for praying outside an abortion clinic. We have German prosecutors saying that if you insult somebody, you could be arrested. We had Alison Pearson, a British journalist, visited at her home by the police because of a tweet that she'd posted a year ago and since deleted. I want the police to be policing real crimes, not thought crimes. But not only this, we have a supine legacy media that pay lip service to free speech, but have suppressed stories and distorted stories. The BBC were found to have violated their editorial guidelines 1,500 times in the 4 months after the appalling atrocities of October the 7th. They were found to have been downplaying Hamas terrorism and promoting the idea that Israel was the aggressor. This is our state broadcaster, funded by the taxpayer. The mainstream media have failed to report on the grooming scandal, and they've failed to hold the deep state to account. And much of the reason for that is the deep state are the people giving them all their information, all their leaks, all their funding, all of their material. And they're frightened of the media regulator, Ofcom. We have seen what independent media has done for the United States, and we want some of that. That's why we are going to be establishing a new free speech media network in conjunction with our American allies, including the great people here at CPAC. It will be uncensorable and uncancelable. It will take on the Britain-bashing corporation, which is what we call the BBC. It will take on Starmer and his socialists, and it will take on the censors of Germany. Because it's only by telling people the truth, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in the Anglosphere, in America, that we will turn our backs on the war's West against itself. All of the people here are working to make America great again. I believe that we can make Britain great again. I believe that we can make Europe great again. And I believe that together we can make the West great again. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome from CPAC, Brazil, member of the Brazil Chamber of Deputies, Eduardo Bolsonaro.
E aí, pessoal?
bom? Good afternoon. Hi there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think you have some Bolsonaro supporters here. The great Brazilian community. This is a little bit weird. I'm not used with talking with the teleprompter, but I'm very happy to be here. Good afternoon, CPAC. How are you doing? It's great to be here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I know many of you are well aware of the risks posed by unelected judges interfering with the policies of a duly elected president. Even we have all heard Elon Musk call it out. We've all heard Vice President JD Vance sound the alarm. And of course, we've all heard President Trump repeatedly warn that judicial overreach threatens not just his presidency, but the very foundation of the American democracy. Well, I come from the future, and I know exactly how this story can end. Okay, maybe not the future, but I come from Brazil, which is not that different, as my country has become a laboratory for censorship and judicial authoritarianism. Since 2019, it's been used as a testing ground for the judicial weaponization against conservative, libertarians, and Christians, always under the noble pretense of protecting democracy, fighting misinformation, and stopping extremism, while in reality, silencing dissidents, controlling narratives, and criminalizing opposition. We continue to face the dire consequences of this experiment every day. Just 3 days ago, my father, former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, was formally charged by the Attorney General of the current socialist government with allegedly orchestrating a coup, a Disneyland coup d'etat, as some might call it, without weapons, without a plan, and while he wasn't even in Brazilian territory, but in Orlando, probably debated strategy with Goofy, and taking national security advices from Mickey Mouse, maybe? It's really the Disneyland coup d'etat. There is no other word to talk about it. This baseless accusation, entirely devoid of evidence, is nothing more than a tool to neutralize political opposition. It mirrors the same tactics used against the opposition in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Yet in Brazil is perceived differently on the global stage because while its situation is in some ways even worse, the persecution is not spearheaded by the executive branch, but by the judiciary. And that makes it all the more dangerous. We are not talking about a dictatorship in the traditional sense. We are talking about a place where tyrants issue decrees and suppress opposition openly. No. In Brazil, the judicial system has been weaponized, creating an illusion of legality while systematically dismantling democracy from within. And guess who helped found this experiment? Right? Agencies like USAID and NED, institutions supposedly dedicated for promoting democracy, but in reality, channeling resources into censorship, judicial overreach, and political persecution in my country. Let me introduce to you a man named Alexandre de Moraes. He is not an elected official. He is a Supreme Court justice who has given himself unchecked power to decide who can speak, who can run for office, and even who can go to the prison. Under his watch, Brazil has become a country where social media platforms are forced to silence opposition voices or face billions in fines. Judges and bureaucrats, not the people, decide who is fit to run for office. Congressmen like Daniel Silveira are thrown into jail for so-called opinion crimes, receiving an outrageous sentence of 8 years and 9 months behind bars, simply for exposing his views in a video, a punishment more fitting of a totalitarian regime than a democracy. And, as I said, even the former president, Jair Bolsonaro, is at risk of being arrested on the same kind of bogus charges used against opposition leaders in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. But it doesn't stop there. The judicial system has become an instrument for persecution at every level. Political parties that challenge the status quo are harassed and investigated, and some of their candidates are banned from competing fairly in elections. Independent journalists face exile or worse, imprisonment for exposing government corruption or criticizing the judiciary. Ordinary citizens who dare to express dissenting opinions on social media find themselves banned, fined, or even arrested. This is not democracy. This is a judicial overreach. This is lawfare. And this is what happens when courts are turned into political weapons against the will of the people. Why is it happening? Because Jair Bolsonaro currently leads all major polls outside the margin of error and is the only candidate capable of defeating the left in the 2026 election. If he is kept out of the race, Brazil will fall completely under China's influence. There is no doubt about that, and Brazil cannot be overlooked. With over 200 million people, the largest economy in Latin America, and a land mass nearly the size of the United States, its geopolitical and economic importance is undeniable. China recognized this and is actively working to pull Brazil deeper into its sphere of influence. And while you might think, this is just a Brazilian problem, it's not. This has many ramifications and has already spilled over into the United States. Here are 3 examples that should concern every American citizen. Number 1, Jason Miller's detention in 2021. An American citizen, advisor to President Trump, was detained in Brazil under politically motivated orders. His crime? Attending CPAC Brazil and supporting free speech. Number 2, Elon Musk's persecution. He was added to an illegal fake news investigation. That's right. Elon Musk is under investigation in Brazil. You should be, I don't know, maybe scared with him if he go around here, if he come around here. Threatened with billion-dollar fines and saw his company X banned in Brazil, all because he refused to comply with government censorship demands. The deep state scandal at CBP involving a Brazilian national. Number 3. Brazilian authorities, in collusion with American bureaucrats, manipulated U.S. immigration records to fabricate justification for the unlawful imprisonment of Felipe Martins, a former national security advisor to my father. He was subjected to solitary confinement, psychological coercion, and inhuman treatment in an attempt to extract statements that could be used to incriminate President Bolsonaro. So, think about it. If they can detain and silence American citizens, if they can control a country as large as Brazil, if they can manipulate official U.S. government's records to imprison a political opponent abroad, what else they can do? What stops them from doing the same to help terrorists, drug cartels, or transnational criminals? And more importantly, if they could do all of this outside of the United States, what makes you think they wouldn't try to replicate it within? This has gone too far. And you, the American people, must pay attention, because what happened in Brazil is being used as a blueprint for judicial tyranny elsewhere, including right here in the United States. Ironically, as I said before, this experiment was partially funded by your taxpayer dollars, which means they will soon come back. They will come to recover their investments. But instead of teaching leftist judges how to destroy Trump, let it serve as a warning for the American people. Freedom is fragile. And once you let unelected judges dictate your democracy, it's only a matter of time before we wake up in a country where free speech, free elections, and even freedom itself are just distant memories. Brazil was a test. Now, thank you. I told you that you have Bolsonaro supporters here. Now they are applying the same formula elsewhere, including here in the United States, and we need to fight back, just as President Trump is doing through his legal team and in partnership with Rumble by filing a lawsuit against Alexandre de Moraes for censoring and sanctioning American businesses and citizens. This legal battle will set a crucial precedent not just for Brazil, but for the future of the free speech and democracy in the United States as well. The globalist playbook is in full effect. If you don't fight back now, you will be the next. Learn from Brazil before it's too late. Thank you all, my friends. This is my message. Pray for my father. Pray for the Brazilians that are in prison now, our January 8th guys. We are asking for amnesty in the Congress, and we hope receive a lot of support from you outside of Brazil, because you know how it means. God bless America. God bless Brazil. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Leo Zaki.
Hello, CPAC. My name is Leo Zaki, and I'm the host of the international radio show America Matters on the Salem Network and the Answer Network. I was vice president of Zaki Farms, my family's poultry company, and a board member of the California Poultry Federation for 10 years. 120 years ago, my family legally immigrated to California, where my great-grandfather started what became Zaki Farms. Zaki Farms was a vertically integrated business and the largest poultry company on the West Coast, largest organic turkey producer in the nation, and the largest privately owned employer in California. After 90 years, we were forced to close our doors and put thousands of people out of work because of elected officials in California who hate private business. They raised the anti-competitive minimum wage and over-regulated the entire industry until it was impossible to exist. Now, a lot of smart people will tell you this is just mismanagement, just waste, just incompetence. But let's be real for a second. This is not incompetence. This is a deliberate strategy to destroy small businesses and the middle class. California isn't run by the people anymore. It's run by a political cartel, by a handful of ruling families and their cronies who will not stop unless we drive them out. Many of you, especially the younger ones in the audience, might not even know this, but California used to be a red state, a strong conservative state. And here's what they don't want you to know. California still has more conservatives than any other state. That's more than Texas, more than Florida. So how did the radicals stay in power? They built a one-party dictatorship, and they call it a supermajority. And they did this by running Democrats, but calling them Republicans. These rhinos stole the vote from the people by making IDs for voting illegal, by inflating the census, gerrymandering, ballot harvesting, and removing all oversight that was in place to ensure election integrity. I'm no detective, but even a dummy can smell voter fraud when the state with the most conservatives somehow magically votes blue every year. We are blessed to have Donald Trump as our president. We truly are. But all that means is that we have a few more years and a fighting chance to clean out the gangsters who are plundering our beautiful nation. The fight continues, and we must win this battle. And this battle is in California. We can turn California red again. It's responsible for some of the worst legislators in the nation and destabilizing our republic with anti-American policies. If it happened here, it can and will happen in your state too. But that's why you're here, to see conservative values defended against the psychotic enemies of our republic with their BS woke agenda 21 and 15-minute cities. Every day, the new Department of Government Efficiency exposes more of their lunacy and disgusting waste. California needs its own DOGE and a proper purchasing department to manage its spending habit with full transparency. Transparency in our government is mandatory to keep out the bad guys. California is over $3.2 trillion in debt. And thanks to DOGE, we will soon know some of the insanity these maniacs have been wasting our money on. This isn't just corruption, it's criminal. The fires in Los Angeles have woken up a lot of lefties. So guess what? It doesn't matter if you used to be a liberal or conservative when you're homeless. Losing everything tends to change your mindset. I'm here to tell you that California is ready for change, but it won't happen without the support of our Republicans across the nation. That means all of you, everyone in this room and listening at home, wants to save this country and defeat the Marxist globalist woke agenda. The time to strike is now. But the establishment rhinos are working hard to derail our America First efforts. Support your grassroots patriots and sign up for your local precinct committeemen. There's over 200,000 empty seats out of the 400,000 nationwide. If we're going to hold the line, we need to scoop them up and also run for local board, council, committee, statewide positions. Trump winning does not mean the war is won. It means we are just getting started. And Americans are gearing up. The battle isn't just against a toxic ideology. It's against criminals who have infiltrated our system and are trying to destroy it from within. We are going to break the totalitarian supermajority in California with the help of God, the prayers of the righteous, and a lot of hard work. Again, my name is Leo Zaki, and please tune into my radio show Monday through Friday and visit my website to see how you can get involved locally with other patriots. Go to turnred.org, and I want to thank all of you so much. America, California's in the fight. Thank you, CPAC.
At the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation, we're making the original pro-life religion pro-life again. To learn about our life-saving educational and healing programs in the United States and in Israel, please visit jewishprolifefoundation.org.
Every institution today is under attack. The home, the church, the government, And many people are asking, what is the truth? Jesus Christ claimed the ultimate truth. Are you willing to face the truth?
Do you think the MKUltra project ever actually ended?
The Central Intelligence Agency is actively involved in mind manipulation.
We all answer to one God and one Savior, and He's there to change your life for the better.
Hey there, scan your QR code on your badge so that you can view the agenda. Check out our membership circles and learn more about our centers.
This president is calling my family, is calling me, is calling MAGA supporters enemy of America.
That's right.
I am the daughter of a Cuban political prisoner who fought for freedom, who fought against authoritarian and dictators. He sounds just like Fidel Castro did. Fidel Castro would target the enemies of his government and try to take them down. This is exactly what we're seeing with Joe Biden. He should be ashamed of himself. No American should be called a Nazi or be called an enemy of the state.
Yeah.
Those of us who love this country, and I have spent my whole life defending freedom in America.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's Hungarian for Trump won and you know it? Please welcome CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp and Political Director of the Prime Minister of Hungary, Balázs Orbán.
Welcome to America, Balázs.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Congratulations to all that you elected President Trump. I think you saved your country, and you did a great thing to Europe and the world, and for my country as well.
Okay, so we have to take care of business. What is Hungarian for Trump won and you know it?
Trump nyert, mi megmondtuk.
Very fantastic. That's great. By the way, we've had 4 CPAC Hungaries, or we will have
That's
a 4th
true. Yeah, the
coming
4th.
up in May. Is everyone invited?
Yes. You have standing invitation.
Come.
Please come and visit us. Budapest is safe and sound.
Safe and sound. It's amazing how when we first started collaborating with each other and with the center and with Miklos and the whole gang, people inside of government, people outside of government, everyone said, why would you go to Hungary? And then I read the Washington Post. I didn't know this. Apparently your prime minister is like a dictator or something. I didn't realize this. And then he was like a fascist dictator who rigged elections. And that's what I was told. And I remember telling one of these reporters, I think it might have been at the Washington Post, I was like, wait a minute, I'm always reading that you say you can't rig elections, and now you can rig elections. How did all that disinformation transform into the fact now people look at Viktor Orban and say he's in many ways the leader of Europe?
I mean, first of all, the liberals are doing the same with everyone. They did the same with...
You mean lying?
Yeah, lying. With your president, they did the same with everybody who is opposing their power structures. That's how things look like. And second, if you represent the truth as a politician, and as it is done by my prime minister, then time is on your side. It means that it will turn out that your decisions, even if those were criticized heavily by the liberal institutions, and they did everything to destroy you, like we were dictators, fascists, Putin's puppets, whatsoever. But time is on your side, and it proves that you were wrong during all time. And that was the case with the migration, when we were saying that letting in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants to Europe and to our country, it's not a good idea. So we should do the other way around. And we were the only ones who asked the people. Migration wasn't an issue in Hungary. So we thought we were thinking about that. Oh, we don't have legitimacy. What decisions should be made? So let's ask the people. And we asked the people. We organized national referendum, and obviously overwhelming majority, even those who are disagreeing with the government, were saying no to illegal migration. And then we stopped it, and then we canceled it. And the same with the war. Same with the war. President Trump is right. As it was said by my prime minister, this war has to end because it brings us nowhere. It's crazy. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people are dying, and everybody takes it like.
And your prime minister, from the very beginning of this war, reached out to Joe Biden and said, let's find a way to end this war. He was on this immediately, but the Biden administration was uninterested.
He was the one who started the peace mission. He said that, look, guys, if we want to end this conflict, we need to reopen the communication channels. How do you want to make a peace if you're not having communication with the other side? It's impossible. So if somebody is saying then that he is working for peace but not having communication with the other side, he's a liar.
That's right.
He's a liar. Don't believe them. Only those people take seriously peace efforts who are ready to engage and negotiate. And what happened? Only as a news, it's a small news, negotiations started immediately. Energy prices went down, stock markets went up. There is again hope. So important. Communication is important. Peace talks are hard, but communication is important.
So there's this special relationship with Donald Trump and Viktor Orban, which is multidimensional. Two amazing guys, very different guys. I think the Western press tries to act like they're the same. They have some similar characteristics: strength, endurance, same policies, but they're different in a lot of ways too, right? I think the one thing that is the most the same is this idea of kind of getting kicked out of power, even though I don't think Donald Trump got kicked out. That's my view. I'm sure I'll get canceled from someone for saying that. I don't think he ever got kicked out. But he had this ability to come back and win the White House. Viktor Orban lost power, gained power. That's something they have in common. Matter of fact, I talked to your prime minister on one of my trips, and I said, you're the one guy on the earth who can tell Donald Trump how you do this.
Yes, that's true. My prime minister is the longest serving leader in Europe, but also a longest serving in opposition. And I think it's also important. If you serve your country, there are different positions where you can, where and how you can do it. And I think there is one similarity between Trump and Orban. They both love their nations.
Yeah.
And this is crucial.
Yeah.
Nations are obviously different. Like Hungary is a small country. It's an old country, a 1,000-year-old country. United States is a big country, but in different geography, different history, different culture. But if you like your country and you are ready to act in accordance of the interest of your country, then you are doing a proper job. If you're not doing that, then you are a bad politician.
That's right. And one of the other similarities is, as you all know, the story of Donald Trump and CPAC is, before I was even elected chairman, he wanted to meet, he wanted to talk about how we could collaborate. He always understood that he was going to work around kind of the establishment systems and work with different kinds of allies. And one of the things your prime minister said to us in this wonderful lunch we have, which will remain off the record, don't worry. That's one of the great things about being around a long time as you follow those rules, is he explained that one of the reasons he lost power was because he didn't have any allies. He didn't have any allies in the media. He didn't have any allies in nonprofits. All the major Soros-funded institutions in Hungary were doing the dirty deeds against him, and he realized he needed to set up institutions and organizations that could help tell the truth. And I think Donald Trump has understood that well, too, by using social media, by being a good partner with CPAC and other conservative groups. You agree with this?
I agree with you. I think the Western world is healing. And we are like national conservatives, if I may call ourselves that way. So it means that we want to save our nation. And we want to see our nation thrive. This is our goal. This is why we engage in public life. But if we want to save our nations, we have to cooperate, because the liberals, they do cooperate. They have an enormous power structure.
Well-funded.
Well-funded, USAID and other organizations were using American taxpayers'
Okay, so let me just stop
money.
you. On behalf of the American taxpayer, we apologize to the good people of Hungary that our government tried to destabilize Orban and the good leaders in Europe. We're
Thank
sorry.
you very much. We appreciate, but unfortunately, Brussels...
But nobody in this room had anything to do with it, I want you to know that.
Brussels
well, maybe some on the way back, but not the rest of us.
Brussels is doing the same, so it's our job to kick them out.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. Hungarian people voted against illegal migration, and what is happening? Brussels is using legal sanctions against us. We have to pay €1 million.
So they're bribing, basically blackmailing your government.
Crazy.
Just because you want to have a border. They're saying we're not going to hold back on the revenue you should be getting from the EU. Every day, the amount of money the EU owes you grows.
Yeah, every day, €1 million we have to pay. But compared to the other option that we let everybody in and we let to have a country which is destroyed, it's the better option. So this is the reason in the long term we need a change. We need a change not just in Washington, but in Brussels as well. Europe liberal elites, they are the most isolated people now, because they are isolated themselves from Trump, and the new administration isolated themselves from Russia, isolated themselves from China, and they are desperate. But for this reason, they are dangerous, and they are ready to do anything to crush their opponents. So we will not let it happen.
Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Okay, so I think we have some great titles in some of our talks. Do you know why I think they're great? Because I came up with some of them, so let me just bask in a tiny little bit of my glory. But there was this concept in America that we needed to have a truce on social issues. We shouldn't talk about questions like when life begins, what is marriage, what is gender, all that stuff. Let the teachers handle it in the schools. And as a party, what we should do is just try to lower taxes, lower regulations. And over time, I think Donald Trump, who's not necessarily a culture warrior, understood that it was questions of immigration, questions of families, question of the continuation of our society that were paramount. Viktor Orban realized this when he came back to power. One of the most amazing things he has done with his party is try to change all these government regulations so that people want to get married. People want to have kids. There's little Hungarian babies in mother's arms. And you're not going to have a country if your people don't, have kids. Yeah. And this idea that you're going to bring in all these migrants to be the next generation in Hungary is something you guys reject.
So in general, the idea of liberal democracy, that the state is not interfering in any of the aspects of the private life, it sounds to be a good idea, because we all are freedom-loving people and we like freedom and we don't want to stay at our courtyard. But in reality, what happened, the left used this argumentation to overtake the institutions, and the liberal state was interfering into the private matters. They were saying that...
Once again, are you saying they were lying? They were acting like they were neutral, but they weren't neutral.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
And I think many more conservatives are starting to realize that if these things are important for us, it's not about freedom. Everybody can do what they want. But if somebody wants to have a family, somebody wants to have a marriage, somebody wants to have kids, then we need a state. We need a functioning institutional system which is not treating her as a criminal, but is treating her as a loyal, normal citizen.
I think they view her as a polluter. Going to bring another human being into the earth and add to the landfills. They view it as a negative.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy.
It's a nightmare, and this nightmare has to be stopped. This is what we are doing in Hungary for like 15 years. We're trying to create an environment which maintain freedom of decision for everyone, but also it advocates some policies. We have a proper family policy. Churches are not prosecuted. They are welcomed in Hungary. Woke agenda is out of schools, out of media, and I'm very happy to see that America is turning to that direction as well. And congratulations to you again.
So what we're really saying is big government ends up subsidizing all the activities for our young people that are counterproductive to society continuing. They're encouraging drugs, giving out free needles, encouraging them to be on their parents' health care until they're like, 47 years old now? Like, nobody gets to grow up at all. And in Hungary, you said, okay, well, if the government's going to subsidize all these things that we don't want to encourage more of, what if we actually use the government system to subsidize what we want? And you did it through tax cuts. So if a mom decides, by the way, I don't think we should force anybody to be a parent. It's really hard to be a parent. The last thing you want to do is have people being parents who are really angry that they're being parents. But like you said, if you want to be a parent, have a kid, you get a tax cut in Hungary.
Yeah,
here we give you almost like a tax increase.
If you have four children, you don't pay any income taxes.
For the rest of your life?
Rest of your life. And we are planning to increase it. Children with 3, and we will see.
What if your child's name is Hunter Biden? Do you still get a tax cut, or does that... is there like an appellate process where maybe you could put a little taxes on that kid?
Every life counts.
Okay, fair enough. It's a good answer. Okay, so you're here in America. It's a long trip from Hungary. By the way, how many people have been to Budapest or to Hungary? How beautiful was it? How safe was it? Amazing, right? Okay, the Balabans are like, they're Polish, but even they are like the Hungarians.
We have beautiful people, beautiful architecture, good food, conservative safe space. That's also important for many people. Come and visit us.
So you've come all this way to America. You're one of the top advisors to a leader that the people here in this room really respect, the people around the country respect, Viktor Orban. You're in the middle of everything now, trying to stop a war, trying to change what Brussels tries to do to ruin people's lives. What's your message for America, and do you feel hope about how our collaboration, starting with CPAC, moving on to Orban and Trump, how this collaboration can change the world?
I think my message would be America is back, is a good news, and don't rely on the liberals, and don't count on the liberals. You have your friends all around the world, and if you find your friends, work with them together and save the Western civilization together. This would be my message.
Are you up to the challenge? Balázs Orbán, thank you for being with us at CPAC. Thanks for the important work you do. And thanks for making Hungary great.
Thank you. God bless.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched.
I made the switch to Newsmax.
We start this morning in Washington, where all eyes are on the White House.
I switched to Newsmax.
Newsmax. Newsmax.
Have you made the switch? You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Everyone is making the switch. I did.
I did.
I switched, and it made all the difference. It made all the difference.
Have you made the switch? You should.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
Every institution today is under attack. The home, the church, the government. And many people are asking, what is the truth? Jesus Christ claimed the ultimate truth. Are you willing to face the truth?
Do you think the MK Ultra project ever actually ended?
The Central Intelligence Agency is actively involved in mind manipulation.
We all answer to one God and one Savior, and He's there to change your life for the better.
under attack. The home, the church, the government. And many people are asking, what is the truth? Jesus Christ claimed to be ultimate truth. Are you willing to face the truth?
Do you think the MKUltra project ever actually ended?
The Central Intelligence Agency is actively involved in mind manipulation.
We all answer to one God and one Savior, and He's there to change your life for the better.
Hey everyone, it's Matt Schlapp with CPAC. You know, CPAC isn't just a conference. We're fighting 365 days a year on all the issues you care about. Please go to your badge. There's a QR code. Check it out and see the different centers we have at CPAC, whether it's fighting anti-Semitism or corporate responsibility or raiding members of Congress or state legislators or criminal justice reform. You name it, we're into it, and check it out right now.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
President Trump is back in the White House. Donald Trump won the presidency.
President Trump is back in the White House.
Donald Trump has taken back America.
I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president. Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He says, you should run for politics. He's the one, he said, you should run for the presidency of the United States.
It is my honor to introduce to CPAC 2017 our president, Donald Trump.
First of all, I want to thank Matt Schlapp and his very, very incredible wife and boss, Mercedes, who have been fantastic friends and supporters, and so great when I watch them on television defending me. Nobody has a chance. I love this place. Love you people. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you. We know that there are still more records to be shattered, new summits to be scaled, more triumphs to be realized, and more amazing history just waiting to be written. The American adventure has only just begun. God bless America, and we will see you next year. Thank you very much. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Say Their Names. Israeli hostage families speak. Please welcome father of Idan Alexander, Adi Alexander, brother-in-law of Omir Moran, Moshe Lavi, Nova Music Festival survivor and brother of Guy Dalal, Gal Dalal, hosted by CPAC Senior Fellow, Mercedes Schlapp.
Vamos.
Thank you all so much. You know, this is a very difficult subject, and I see someone in the crowd, Julie Levin. Stand up, look, Julie. Julie Levin, Mark Levin's wife, but just a leader in this issue of being a voice for the Jewish people, for the suffering that we have seen, the tragedies that we have witnessed against innocent lives. And these brave men have come here to deliver a somber message, but it's also a message of hope, a message of urgency, a message of action that we need to take. And here at CPAC, we all, a CPAC family, first we stand with your families. When you are in pain, when you are suffering, we are suffering with you, and we are praying for each and every one of you. And to start this, Gal, I want to start with you. You were at the Nova Music Festival that day on October 7th.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
First of all, I'll start with thank you, Mercedes, and thank you, all of you, for being here and supporting us. And thank you for having us. The Nova Festival had almost 5,000 people in it. more than 20 nationalities. It was like a gathering of all sorts of different people from all sorts of different cultures. People went to celebrate life, spiritual people. It was a spiritual festival. And the people who were kidnapped from them had nothing to do with this conflict, had nothing to do with this war, and they should have never used as a currency in this war. I went to this festival because it was my brother's first festival ever.
And it's your younger brother.
It's my baby brother, yeah.
Yeah.
And he never went to any of these kinds of festivals. So I encouraged him, actually, to go to this kind of festival because I knew that it's going to be a good one. And he asked me to come with him, to join him in his experience and to watch over him. And that was the only reason I went. And I arrived there pretty early in the morning. 15 minutes after I arrived, the alarms already went off. And I asked my brother if he wanted to come to my house with his friends, and they all agreed to come to my apartment. And I asked him if he wanted to join me in my car. And he said that he don't want his friend to feel like he left them, so he's going to go back with them, and he see me at home. I think like 30 minutes later, the terrorists start shooting on us. It was a massive round of shooting. It came from all around us. We had to leave our cars and run away, and I haven't seen my brother ever since.
When that happened, tell us about the moment when you realized, oh my goodness, he's been taken.
So after almost 10 hours of fleeing, running and hiding, while terrorists shooting on me with gunshots and RPGs, rockets, I was finally able to get rescued by our forces. And they took us to the nearest police station. This is where I called my father. And my father sounded broken, and I said to him, look, if something happened to my brother, you need to let me know. And that's when he told me that my brother was kidnapped and that Hamas was already published a hostage video 3 hours before I was even able to escape, which meant that my parents, my family, everyone knew that my brother was taken, but no one told me, so I can focus on saving my own life.
So they saw the video, your parents saw the video first.
Yeah, and I saw it when I saw it after I was rescued, and all I could think about is that I went there to watch over him, and I went back without him. I just couldn't realize it. It took me a while.
How are you getting through day by day?
It's a whole process for us, the families of the hostages. Every day, it's another struggle. But we always have on our minds that our hostages, our loved ones, they suffer much more. When we think about the pain that they have to endure while still in captive, we get strength and we get the power to do everything we can to help them. I know that my brother will do exactly the same for me, and we have to stay strong for them for when they will come back.
Moshe, your brother-in-law.
Thank you.
Omri. He has a wife, Lishai, and 2 beautiful girls. What happened?
On October the 7th, Hamas terrorists barged into my sister Lishai and Omri's home. They used a teenager from the kibbutz, Tomer Arava, to lure them to open the door. And they opened it immediately to save Tomer's life. Tomer was found dead a few days later, his body in a field. But Omri and Lishai knew that they were opening the door to terrorists to save his life. For hours they were held captive in their own home. My niece Roni was awakened with a gun pointed at her face, terrorists surrounding her. She was 2.5 years old back then. They were then grouped with another family in the kibbutz, the Dan family, whose eldest daughter, Mayan, was murdered. They were abused for hours. It was live streamed on Facebook. The terrorists took a phone of one of the captives and simply live streamed it on their Facebook account. And then at around 1:30 p.m., Omri was handcuffed. Lishai told him she loves him, she'll take care of the girls, and asked him not to be a hero. He told her he loves her, and that was the last time she saw him. Roni, my niece, tried to run to him. Lishai stopped her, luckily. And ever since, Omri has been a hero. For 503 days, he's been a hero in captivity, fighting for survival, while we are fighting here to returning home. I'm lucky because my sister Nisa survived, my parents survived, my other sister and her family survived. All experienced October the 7th while I was in New York. But being lucky means you have a hostage in your family that you need to fight for.
When Lishai called you, what did she tell you?
We discovered Lishai was rescued that evening, Israel time, the night. She was rescued 11 hours after the attack started by the IDF. After Omri was taken, she was held captive for a few more hours in that home. We talked for the first time a day later, the entire family on WhatsApp. We did a video call, and it was so difficult. By that time, my parents were rescued, my other sister was rescued, and luckily Shai and the girls were rescued. And we tried to understand what's going on. What do we need to do? Where is Omri? And for the next couple of days, we discussed what do we need to do. I wanted to return to Israel to serve in the army. I was a captain in the IDF. But then my sister told me, I need you to be my soldier in this war until Omri comes home. I need you to speak up because there are very few people who can speak up for me and for Omri like you can. And since that day, I've been her voice. I've been Omri's voice. I've been every single hostage voice because they can't speak from the dungeons of Hamas. They are chained, they are starved, they're deprived of water, sanitation, sunlight. They're calling for the rescue. And we have to make sure to bring them home, like Vice President JD Vance said. Irrespective of other issues, there is one priority right now. Let's not sign more death certificates. Let's make sure all the hostages who are alive return home, and those who were murdered in captivity, like those who will return today and broke our heart, will be buried in the land of Israel.
Adi, your son, the oldest of three. Yeah. Idan, the only living American right now in captivity. How are you feeling? I mean, how are you processing this every day as a father?
You know, I'm just thinking about the place that my kids grew up in, which is Rockville, Maryland, not far away from this hotel. And we moved to New Jersey back in 2008. It's really hard. I mean, Idan is an all-American kid, Tenafly High School graduate, decided on a gap year to enlist himself to IDF, and because he loved both of his countries. And this is what he did. On that tragic day, he found himself on a tiny outpost next to Kibbutz Nir Oz, and he was the only soldier at this post. And the post was attacked, heavily attacked. He was surrounded by more than 20 militants. And after conducting a short fight, he found a way to surrender. So we kind of consider ourselves lucky that he managed to surrender. And ever since, you know, he was seen in the tunnels right at the beginning. And then Hamas released this hostage video on Thanksgiving's weekend when we saw Idan speaking. We saw him well. He was pale. He wasn't himself, but he was alive. And this is what's important for us, and this is what drives us forward.
Gal, 69 hostages have been released. 6, I believe, now coming up on Saturday. We've seen the tragedy of the Bibas family, the 2 beautiful children, the mother, and we've all seen those photos. What is your message to the leaders out there, the international leaders out there,
who are just not stepping up to put pressure on Hamas to release these terrorists, release these hostages right now?
We have been waiting for so long to see hostages returning. And for almost 500 days, we waited for the second deal to come. And as soon as Trump started his role as the President of the United States, you could see hostages start to return. And I think that's because Trump knows evil and good. Trump can see, you mentioned the Bibas, little babies should have never used, taken as hostages, used as a currency in a war. That's just unimaginable evil. And for that we thank him. And I think that the world is looking at what's going on in the United States, and we believe that with him, we will get to see all the other hostages. But the thing is that we are grateful for all the lives that he saved already, but there are still many lives that are waiting to be saved. And I would say, don't forget about the hostages. Yeah.
This goes, Moshe, beyond a political issue. This is a humanity issue. And you've seen President Trump involved personally in this process, but the reality is, and you said this, you said that the fight against the Islamic terrorists, it's a long-term struggle, but there's this urgency to get these hostages released right now. I mean, how do you just describe this message to those out there so that the world can unite in saving these hostages?
I'll say that our struggle against Hamas, their accomplices, their funders and sponsors, members of the United Nations, is long-term. And we will finish that long-term struggle and be victorious. But for us as a society, to be victorious, to protect our social contract, our national and Jewish ethos, we have to bring home the hostages. It's a humanitarian issue. It's an international issue. Hostages from so many countries were kidnapped, of several faiths were kidnapped and are still held. Omri is a dual national, Israeli and Hungarian, and I can say the Hungarian government has stood behind us since the beginning. And so does the United States government. I'm so appreciative and grateful for President Trump's leadership, and I'm certain he knows that what needs to be happening now is that all the hostages must be freed. We have to keep demanding that Hamas let them go, but making sure that we make the concessions needed to bring them home in the short term.
Adi, you've spoken to President Trump multiple times. What does he tell you?
President Trump is a very tough guy, he's a smart guy. At the beginning, when we first met, before he took office, he was shocked by the fact that 45 Americans were killed on that day, on October 7th. To count anything like this, really, other than September 11, you have to go back to 80s. And ever since we met him, he took ownership on this matter, recognizing that Americans are still being held and 45 Americans killed, and we're really grateful for that. But we have to push forward until everybody's out. No tips and drips, bunch of them out, like hopefully this Saturday, and then we will be done.
Just to wrap up here, Gal, what do you want to tell our people here at CPAC? How can we support you and your family?
So we always say that we need your prayers and we need your actions. Don't forget the hostages. Don't forget that they are waiting for you. Everyone can do something, and we all have the responsibility to do all we can to bring them back. And together we will.
Adi, your message to what you want to know, how we can be helpful for you and your family as well.
Just keep this issue front and center. Keep praying. Really, this is the time to pray. We're in the middle of this process. Hopefully, we will be successful to pass it over the finish line. with President Trump's help, leadership, and Steve Witkoff's knowledge and leadership as well. Just keep praying, guys.
Moshe.
I'll ask all this amazing audience to close your eyes and imagine with me my nieces Ronnie and Alma running to their father Omri. Imagine my sister Lishai hugging and kissing her husband Omri. Imagine Danny, Omri's father, shaving his beard after hundreds of days and embracing his son Omri. And take that joy of picturing that to mobilize in every way you can, prayer, action, rallying, writing, so that I could tell my nieces Ronnie and Alma that their father is coming home tomorrow.
I do want to say we spent time with Noah, who is here. She's one of the freed hostages who was in captivity for over 200 days. And let me tell you something. This young woman is recovering from major trauma, and she's putting her trauma aside to be a voice for the rest of the hostages. So that is such a brave woman right there. And these are brave men who are being so strong for their families and for the Jewish people. And we here have an obligation to make sure we give them the love, the support, the prayers, and make sure that these hostages come back home. Thank you. Thank you for being with us at CPAC. You all really inspire us. And yes, we're going to bring the people back home. We're going to bring the hostages back home. We are going to stand with you, stand with your families, and ensure that we can start healing and start moving forward. Thank you so much. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, up next, BlackRock's Life Matters, crushing woke boardrooms. Please welcome U.S. Representative from West Virginia, Representative Riley Moore, co-founder and president of Patriot Mobile, Glenn Story, CEO of Morris Industries, Nate Morris, and your host from Newsmax, Bianca Della Garza.
Thank you. How's it going, CPAC?
All right.
Well, we are so thrilled to be here, and I just had a little backstage convo with these guys. Patriots, entrepreneur, visionaries, and they are going to be so enlightening. So I'm pleased to be here. And I know we just heard all the introductions, but Congressman Moore, Glenn Story, the CEO of Patriot Mobile. If you don't have his cell service, we're gonna change you today on that. And Nate Morris, really incredible stories. So let's start a little bit with you, Congressman Riley Moore, because West Virginia is the 5th largest energy producer. And people were looking at what was going on, and you were the treasurer before you were in Congress. And way before it was popular, you actually took on BlackRock, you took on JP Morgan, you took on all these big banks and said you need to divest. You basically said you're fired. Tell us about the circle that was going on in your state that made no common sense.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, for us in West Virginia, it was really an existential threat for us to continue to deal with these financial institutions that had an ESG framework that was so harmful to our industries, coal, natural gas, and oil. And so what I did was start to talk to some of our coal producers, natural gas, and the like, and they were losing access to financing. They couldn't continue their operations because no one would bank them. They were essentially being debanked. And we had folks like BlackRock and the other big three that were moving investment away from these critical industries that just so happen to power the country and are also so important to the state of West Virginia. So in 2021, I sent letters to them warning them if they didn't stop this activity that we were going to divest out of them, and they ignored those warnings. And then in January of 2022, it's a little while ago now, I became the first elected official in the United States to divest our tax dollars out of BlackRock entirely. Thank you. And then we took it a step further and created what's called the Restricted Financial Institution List, which had said if you're boycotting the fossil fuel industry, you're going to lose the ability to be able to bid on any financial service contract in the state of West Virginia. And that's where we ended up putting a lot of other banks on that list, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, a whole bunch of other guys, and we had to tear up a lot of contracts, tens of millions of dollars.
We'll get back to that. And fortunately, you had the vision to do that. Nate, walk us through when you were in your early stages. You started your company on a credit card. You said with 10 grand, you took it public, $700 million, and you had to battle the woke, well, you called it like the Sopranos. I'll let you tell that.
Well, you know, first I want to say, you know, I'm Nate Morris. I'm a Kentuckian. I'm a 9th generation Kentuckian. I'm an entrepreneur, and I believe entrepreneurship is the cornerstone to our country. It's how jobs get created. And we had a big announcement this morning, come out of Kentucky. Mitch McConnell said he's retiring.
Woo! The little breaking news here.
So I don't know if anyone's heard that yet. And, you know, a lot of people have encouraged me to look at the seat. And I just want to speak as an entrepreneur. I'm an outsider. I'm a businessman. And I think we need more people coming from the outside to help President Trump with the America First agenda. Yeah. And for conservatives, this is our opportunity to rip control that Mitch McConnell has had on the Republican Party and aspects of our party and taken us down this direction. And he has tried to purposely sabotage President Trump over and over and over again. This is our chance to get it back and give it back to the people.
Amen. Well, I do think, obviously, the country is on a fortunate and trajectory with this election. We can all feel it as we're here, as we're walking in the halls, we're exchanging ideas. I wrote a book last year called Incoming, on the front lines of the left's war on truth, because what we saw was the Marxist professors indoctrinating kids, and then they go into these woke corporate boardrooms. And this was a circle that, fortunately, we've been able to break with this historic election. And I think we all look at Donald Trump as not just our president of this country, but also somebody, a visionary who will take us into an America in the golden age. And, you know, your story, Glenn, is amazing. Patriot Mobile is based on Christian values. And that's something a lot of people, after we witnessed Butler, Pennsylvania, really are coming back to their faith in this country. And Patriot Mobile is based on that. And it's a very unique model, and you are thriving under that model.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And before I go there, I just want to say thank you to Matt and Mercy and the CPAC staff and leadership to do what you guys do, to bring the most important conservatives together and just raise each other up. But to answer your question, yeah, Patriot Mobile is a cell phone service provider. We carve out a portion of every bill and donate back to biblical causes. But what really separates Patriot Mobile is we're 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our donation patterns along, yeah, it's a great thing. But most importantly, we put God first. He is at the helm of our business. Yeah. He's at the helm of our business. And when he's at the helm of your business, it just changes the landscape, right? You know you can't do wrong. And, you know, we live by these biblical principles, and we make these donation patterns back to organizations like Right to Life, military and first responders, First Amendment and Second Amendment. You look at those are really constitutional, biblically driven objectives or initiatives. So
yeah. And when you are thriving, you can take that money and do good with it. And I mentioned, Nate, that you went public with your company, and after you had been dealing, tell us a little bit about what you saw. You said it was a very innovative company, but you had to deal with people you thought they were like the mob in Sopranos. You thought ESG, they came in, it was even worse.
Yeah, let me tell you, I thought I saw extortion in the waste business, like we did with Tony Soprano. The extortion I saw in the waste business is nothing compared to what ESG terrorists do to corporate leaders every day, forcing them into positions and threatening to bankrupt their company if they do not adhere to these bogus, crazy standards. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so compelled to look at getting into politics. Because we, as corporate leaders, we have to fight. We have to fight this. One of the first things I did when I left my company was invest in Strive, Vivek Ramaswamy's anti-woke investment platform, to say we're going to stand up to this and we're going to fight back. And we're going to make sure that politics stays out of business and gets centered around merit and what the market should reward, period.
Great message.
You know, their ultimate goal is to silence us, right? That was their goal.
Good luck, right?
And we won't be silenced, right?
No. And I think that's part of the, you know, we look at JD Vance and Peter Thiel when they invested in Rumble. We look at Newsmax. We're soaring. And it's because Americans truly have woken up. But now there's a higher demand on our elected leaders. And fortunately, Donald Trump, Doge, is making a lot of advances. Maybe we're all even going to get a rebate from what they're saving. But Congressman Moore, I know, I like that. You know what it's like being in politics and being in Congress now. People are going to be held accountable. He's talking about Mitch McConnell officially announcing, but their old guard has been put on notice. Can you talk about that, since you were at the forefront of sort of putting ESG and BlackRock on notice?
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you, I got a lot of calls when I first divested from BlackRock, which is 3 years ago now, and most of it was, Riley, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? Why are you even messing with this? And ESG is such an existential threat, I mean, to our capitalist system here in America, as we were just hearing right now. It's an extortion racket. But look, this party now is the party of Donald Trump. That is very clear. It's an America First movement. That's where the Republican Party is going. And we got to make sure that we stay on that trajectory, right? And we've seen this time and time again, where we will have America First policies that go and die in the United States Senate. That happens all the time. You know, clearly I'm in for the one big beautiful bill in reconciliation, and so is President Donald Trump, because that's the way we're going to accomplish his agenda. But, you know, perhaps it looks like the Senate might be moving a piece of their legislation forward. We've got to be unified under the president and execute on his 77 million vote mandate that he has.
I agree. So that's how Washington works. And, you know, as a member of the national media and hearing the stories of rural Americans, some of them really did feel left behind. I mean, you have cell service. You look at the people ravaged by hurricanes, and FEMA wouldn't even help people with Trump signs. Starlink wanted to come in, and they said, well, if you don't have an address, they're like, these people lost their homes. It was almost at one point the government was weaponized. We were seeing it in real time against these poor people. And you had this really kind of amazing thing you said, and obviously you're very successful, but you said you know who your roots are. And when the left wants to laugh at conservative values, or they want to smear us, or they want to silence us. You have a beautiful message, Glenn, and I'd love for you to share it with this amazing crowd.
You know, what really happens when it boils down to, you got to stay with your roots, right? You know what you're doing, and if you let them silence you, they've won. And I always say, no, right? We're going to stand in the forefront. We're going to be bold in what we do, regardless if it's out there. You know, I'll digress momentarily. I was on a call with the party chair of Georgia, and I said, hey, dude, how's it going? And he goes, it's miserable. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, our hurricane east of 75 is destroyed. So Friday at 4 o'clock, I called a couple of our executive team, Scott Coburn, and I said, hey, look, we need to fill up a trailer. We've got a 26-foot trailer. We've got a 1-ton truck.
It's amazing.
Let's fill this thing up with generators, wipes, diapers, baby formula. You just go down the list. Here's the most amazing thing. I couldn't go. I had some family stuff to do, but a couple of our staff did. And what was amazing about this is they drove out. They were giving stuff out to people that needed it. They haven't had anything. And the law said you got to turn left, and our driver goes, no, we're going to go straight. So they went straight. Now, this is a grown man, a professional soccer player. A woman was standing on the side of the road, and so he says, let's pull over. And they got out of the car, and Ethan's sitting down there somewhere. They got out of the car, and she goes, you know what? The only thing I need is diapers and wipes. I just said, Lord, please deliver. So they pull over, and you know what? We had crates and diapers and wipes. And this is a grown man, just starts weeping. He's like, you know, what else? That's what we're commanded to do, to believe in our...
And you know, it's not easy. You know, we have an elected member of Congress, 2 entrepreneurs and CEOs. When I brought you out, I said you're patriots. But we also, I think your stories are so important because other people in this audience are looking and saying, how can I do this? How can I involve? And there is obviously tremendous opportunity for American exceptionalism again under this president now. You're thinking about possibly getting into the race, but we know that you build companies. What do you just say to folks? We're on a live stream here. You have, you know, thousands of people watching. You know, they want to know how I get a credit card loan and start a company and be like you and do that in today's climate where we have the winds of change at our back.
Absolutely. Look, I was raised by a single mother. 19 of my family members worked in an auto plant in Kentucky. My grandparents helped raise me. And I think that one of the things my mother always said, you know, we may not have a lot of money, but it's free to think big, and you should think big. You're going to be thinking anyway, so you might as well be thinking big. And I think we got to get back to that and be the country of dreamers again. And I think Donald Trump has got people in America to get hopeful and get those dreams in action. And that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at this seat. I feel like as somebody I owe so much to my teachers, my pastors, coaches, people have helped me. I got to do something. And, you know, right now we've got 2 candidates that are looking at this race that are puppets of Mitch McConnell.
Right.
And we can't have that.
Well, when it comes to ESG, BlackRock, they've been put on notice, Congressman Moore, and you come up from a family of politicians as well, so you know it's a tough business. DC's a tough town. Tell us about some of the things that you're working on now that are future forward. I know there's something to do with protecting gun owners' rights, because you can't just stop it when it comes to BlackRock. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on, and you're really kind of clue us into what you're doing.
Yeah, so we dealt with this on the state level in West Virginia. It's called a merchant category code. Maybe some of you have heard of this, but the credit card companies have put this in place to be able to track the purchase of your guns and ammunition in the United States of America. Now, we had put in an ability and a right to sue, cause of action in West Virginia if they shared your data. But I have a bill right now, and I do believe we're going to get action on it, in the United States House of Representatives to ban the merchant category code on guns and ammunition. Thank you. Now, this is a little bit off the ESG topic, but this is, I just wrote an op-ed about this, and I'd encourage you to take a look at it because it's a huge national security issue, and I am looking at legislation on this. There are currently in the United States, There are 300,000 Chinese nationals on student visas in our country. And I'm looking to ban all student visas from China moving forward.
Amen. Amen.
Glenn, tell us about why you are the best choice, the alternative, because, you know, you're up against the big guys. It's never deterred you. You said your sales, every time they come after you, you kind of soar. But a lot of people would have been maybe not up for the task to go up against the big guys and all the big cellular companies.
Yeah, you know what, I would just say, we're not really up against them. We really aren't. You know, we're the only carrier out there. I won't get into the technical side, but we buy wholesale from all the major networks. We repackage it and sell it retail. And the real beauty of that is we provide a service, and I think it's better. Not only is our coverage better because we have all the networks, but look, we put him first. And when you put him first, what can you do? And then the real hook is when you call into our offices. You know, we have an office in East Texas and in the Valley in California. You either talk with a redneck like me or you talk with a Californian. And that's the real part. But then above that, it's not uncommon that we'll pray with you on the phone. And it happens all the time. We have a booth downstairs. I'll shamelessly plug Patriot Mobile. Come down. I think we've got promo code CPAC. You get a free month of service. But most importantly, you're going to be working with companies that love and honor their creator. Yeah. And I'm going to just say this. When you do that, it's so much better. You know you're not supporting organizations that are contrary to your values.
Right.
I mean, I know we have Patriot Mobile customers out there. I'm looking at two waving and a couple of Hey, everybody in here should be a Patriot Mobile customer.
Can you hear him now?
Hey, that's a good hint, right?
You said you were part of Strive,
Love it.
Nate, and so tell us kind of the future of, you know, do you think that ESG is dead? Is it all done for now? Or do we have to be vigilant? Because, you know, corporate greed and others that don't have the intention, a pure of heart, which I'm hearing from all of you here on the stage.
Yeah, look, elections have consequences.
Amen.
And we have to have leaders that are going to fight to keep this nonsense and garbage out of our corporate system and out of our economy. It has no place. And I think, you know, we just had, we had an awful thing happen yesterday. Our governor, a Democratic governor, allowed KFC to move out of Kentucky.
So I read about that. I read about that.
And how does that happen? And this goes back to, we've got to elect America first, patriots that are not beholden and on a bended knee to Mitch McConnell or anyone else, but they're going to fight with President Trump and to keep this nonsense out of our politics, period.
We just have a few moments left. That's pressure, and you're right there in the thick of it, AKA they call it the swamp, and they don't say that without reason.
Yeah, well, and to your previous question, I'm sure there's somebody sitting out here right now, and I want this to be kind of hopefully core memory at some point. Each and every one of you should consider running for office. All of you should think about doing this.
Love it.
I'm serious, because this is not, the seat I'm sitting in is not my seat. It belongs to the people of West Virginia, and they've hired me for 2 years to do it.
Wow.
Any of you can do these jobs. You can stand up, go run. State level politics is awesome. You can get a lot more done there than you can sometimes at the federal level. Please, I encourage everybody to take a look at office.
I told you you'd be impressed, right? Congressman Riley Moore, Glenn Story, CEO Patriot Mobile, Nate Morris, and who knows what type of political future we'll be seeing from you. And
I like this guy back here.
I'm doing my show live here over at our booth at Newsmax, so come by and say hi. I'm Bianca Della Garza. An honor and a blessing to be with all of you great patriots today. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless.
here under construction, but already the biggest news station in Poland. The only international TV station that interviewed Donald J. Trump.
I'd like to say hello to the Polish people.
Poland's leftist government wants to destroy us, but we are not backing down. We're building conservative, English-speaking European news station. Join the movement. Support the revolution.
Make Europe great again.
This is Republica, the home of free speech.
The steal was stopped on Election Day, I think in no small part thanks to Judicial Watch's heavy lifting. In just the last year and a half or two, we've cleaned up 4 million dirty names from the rolls. We also got that huge Fifth Circuit ruling that found counting ballots received after Election Day is unlawful. You can be sure that all helped ensure cleaner elections on Election Day, but there's more work to be done, so be sure to support Judicial Watch's election integrity work.
Hey, we have a great group of sponsors down at CPAC Central. Make sure you go down there, get all the merchandise you need, see all the companies that are fighting the woke crap in the country. Hear from our breakout panelists and speakers. Hear Steve Bannon. Hear everything that's important at CPAC. Get down to CPAC Central today.
I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president. Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He says, you should run for politics. He's the one who said, you should run. For the presidency of the United States.
It is my honor to introduce to CPAC 2017 our president, Donald Trump.
First of all, I want to thank Matt Schlapp and his very, very incredible wife and boss, Mercedes, who have been fantastic friends and supporters, and so great when I watch them on television defending me. Nobody has a chance. I love this place. Love you people. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you. We know that there are still more records to be shattered, new summits to be scaled, more triumphs to be realized, and more amazing history just waiting to be written. The American adventure has only just begun. God bless America, and we will see you next year. Thank you very much. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome host of the Michael Knowles Show, Michael Knowles.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you. Oh, look at this. Look at these beautiful, patriotic, energized. Ooh, I love it. I love being at CPAC. It is always a pleasure to be at CPAC. I felt like an old man when I was thinking about this trip because I first came to CPAC in 2011. And it was fun then, it's been fun ever since, but something feels different this year. Doesn't it? Something. What is it? What is that thing? I don't think that it's just that we won. Because, we won in 2016. Some people say we won in 2020. I'm not going to get into it. But it can't just be that we won. I think the big difference this year is that we won, and we won the popular vote. That was the big difference. Most voters in this country voted for Donald Trump. Huge swaths of every demographic, including groups that Democrats have had a lockdown on for decades. We're talking about an historic proportion of black male voters, almost half of Hispanic voters, something like 50% of women over 45, even, this one really shocked me, 40% of women under the age of 30. That was the most Kamala-y demographic, and we still got that. So many of them voted for Trump and for Republicans in the House and the Senate. It was a clean sweep. It was a clear mandate, and it was a mandate for common sense. That's the only way to explain this broad coalition of people who usually argue with each other,
Republicans, disaffected Democrats, conservatives, liberals, people across both sexes and all ages and all races. The Democrats lost the common sense. And their loss is our gain, not only at the ballot box, but also in expanding the political imagination, in opening up the discourse that we can have in our politics. For too long, uniparty elites have limited political discourse to exclude the common sense policies that people actually want. Just look at immigration. For decades, we have been told that we have two choices when it comes to immigration: more illegal immigration or more legal immigration. And sometimes the left and the right, they compromise and they give us both. Great. But it turns out that most Americans do not want more immigration of any kind. Most Americans want drastically less immigration, legal and illegal. Gallup polling last July found 55% of Americans want overall immigration reduced. This backs up another poll from 2018, Harvard-Harris, found that most Americans want annual legal immigration capped at about 500,000. That is about 60% less than the current levels. That is about 85% less than overall immigration levels. That is what most Americans repeatedly have indicated that they want. And it's perfectly reasonable. Today, we have the highest foreign-born percentage of the population that we have ever had in our nation's history. It is not possible for a nation to maintain social cohesion and its own way of life while taking in unlimited numbers of foreigners. There's nothing bigoted about that observation. And yet, until recently, that view, the preference of most Americans, was totally unrepresented by either major political party. Look at the LGBT ideology. In recent years, uniparty elites have told us that we have two options. Either we trans the kids in kindergarten or we wait until they turn 8. Maybe if we're lucky, we can wait until the kids are out of elementary school before the indoctrination begins. What kind of a choice is that? Within the past decade, transgenderism did not exist in public life at all. Not in schools, not in sports leagues, not in bathrooms, not in the military, not anywhere. And things worked a lot better then, and probably we should return to that. To put in perspective just how rapidly this gender-bending LGBT ideology has been forced upon us, consider that Barack Obama, in the final year of his first term as president, held that marriage is the lifelong union of a man and a woman ordered toward the procreation and education of children. Hillary Clinton believed that too. Basically, everybody believed that. Everyone, everywhere, for statistically all of human history, has understood that fact. That is the only definition of marriage that distinguishes it from other kinds of relationships. Marriage was not invented by ideologues, and it cannot be redefined by ideologues either. It is a natural institution. Not even the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court wants to try, but not even they can change that reality. It just is what it is. Nothing bigoted about that observation. It's just a fact. Here's another fact, basic stuff. God exists. Simple. We can know that. Even in our relentlessly secular political order, 81% of Americans believe in God. And you know, that is actually the lowest number ever recorded. Historically, the number is north of 95%. And still, that means that the overwhelming majority of Americans believe in God. And that is because the existence of God can be known with certainty from human reason. But these days, you would not know that, judging by our public institutions. In recent decades, uniparty elites have offered us two options when it comes to religion. Keep it private, or don't keep your religion at all. In public, federal agents spy on our churches. They sue members of religious orders. They imprison parents for praying peaceably outside of abortion mills. Maybe, just maybe, we're permitted to entertain religious thoughts silently in our own minds. But the moment that we start talking about or acting on those ideas in public, we're in trouble. But religion is not just some private privilege. Religion is a public right. Our very country is predicated on the idea that God exists and that we are made in his image. God is in the Declaration of Independence. He's in our national anthem. He's even on our money. The fact that in recent decades, our political class has largely removed God from public life is an aberration and a national scandal, and it needs to be reversed. Now, of course, it's not really possible to remove religion from politics because lawmaking entails moral judgments, whether we're talking about abortion or whether we're talking about parking tickets. Politics requires us to come to certain conclusions about human nature, about justice and mercy, sin and grace. Politics always and everywhere involves rituals and veneration, reward and punishment. These things are inescapable. So when the ideologues remove traditional and true religion from our politics, they can only replace it with their own novel and false religions. They replace Christmas displays with pride parades, sturdy virtues with modern values, faith, hope, and charity with diversity, equity, and inclusion. They ban the Bible from schools, and then they assign gender queer. That is to say, they remove the most important book ever written, the book without which it is not possible to be an educated person, and they replace it with their own neo-Gnostic nonsense. Is it any wonder that our rulers got so stupid? You saw the consequences of taking the Bible out of schools a couple weeks ago when our vice president invoked a basic Christian concept, and our political establishment started alternately drooling and shrieking. When he was asked about mass migration, JD Vance brought up the order of charity, which is the idea that we owe more to the people closer to us than to people who are further away. This is an observation. It's so obvious. It's articulated in Scripture. It's written about by the great Christian thinkers. But it's also just common sense. It does not take a PhD in philosophy or theology to know that we owe more to our kids than we do to face-tattooed Mexican gangsters. Now, of course, this means that our political leaders owe more to American citizens than they do to foreigners. That's the point JD was making. That is the meaning of the phrase America First. It's not that we don't wish to help people around the world. We certainly do. We're the most charitable nation in history. But it is perverse for our political elite constantly to prioritize the whims and desires of foreigners over the needs of citizens. A nation without a proper concern for its own well-being can never, in the long run, be good to anyone else anyway. This is why when we're on the airplane, they say, put your own mask on before you help others. You need to have things in order. For decades, our uniparty elite have told us we have two options when it comes to charity and the common good. We can either erase our national borders, or we can try and fail to build democracies in the Middle East. Or we could do both, I guess. Those were our options. But you know, there's a third option, and it happens to be the option that most Americans want. We can rebuild our own country. We can help our own citizens. Charity, after all, begins at home. We do not have to accept the false dichotomies offered to us by a corrupt political establishment. We can form new coalitions. We can elect new leaders. We can have our country back, and we can even make it great again. Thank you very much.
Newsmax has been terrific.
President Trump is right. Millions are switching to Newsmax. It's the fastest growing streaming service in America. You don't need those woke streaming services anymore. Just get Newsmax Plus. Watch the best shows like Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Greta Van Susteren, and Rob Finnerty.
Greg Kelly over at Newsmax. The Newsmax people have been really, really terrific.
Gain access to exclusive documentaries, series, and special briefings. It's free to start. So go to NewsmaxPlus.com now to sign up and watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere.
Freedom, sovereignty, prosperity. The Patriots for Europe Foundation is on a mission to make Europe great again. Globalist elites have led Europe into a dead-end street. Violent crime has surged because of mass immigration. The Green Deal has put the future of the European economy at risk. Fake NGOs and the massive bureaucracy in Brussels are interfering in our democracies. Patriots must take action. We bring analysis, we organize debates, we build the network of patriots to challenge the woke narrative head on. Patriots for Europe Foundation.
Hey everyone, it's Matt Schlapp with CPAC. You know, CPAC isn't just a conference. We're fighting 365 days a year on all the issues you care about. Please go to your badge. There's a QR code. Check it out and see the different centers we have at CPAC, whether it's fighting anti-Semitism or corporate responsibility or raiding members of Congress or state legislators or criminal justice reform. You name it, we're into it, and check it out right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Culture Warriors. Take your truce and shove it. Please welcome CEO and President of Concerned Women for America, Penny Nance. President of American Principles Project, Terry Schilling, and your moderator, Second Vice Chairman of CPAC, Matt Smith.
The fan club is here.
Hey, we're here. Where are my kids?
Well, you need a van for all 10 of them.
All 10 of them. That's
Well, inside joke while we were backstage. Before we get started, though, we want to just thank all the pro-life, pro-family patriots that are here. Please give yourselves applause for being here and making the travel out to Washington, D.C. During this cold winter. We thank you. You know, the name of this panel talks about truces, and CPAC has never called a truce on being pro-life. We've never called a truce on being pro-family. And we've got two of our great allies here today, in Terry and Penny. They're going to talk about some of the progress that's being made since we've got a great pro-life, pro-family president of the White House again. And so to kind of start with that, Penny, we're a month into the presidency. The president's been pretty active.
Yes.
What are a few of the things that he's done that get you excited in the pro-life movement?
Well, first off, thank God President Trump won, right? And Concerned Women for America is the nation's largest public policy women's organization, and we are unapologetically pro-life women. And we are not afraid to lead with that. And what a great month it's been, from everything from pro-life people who use their First Amendment rights to, I don't know, sing and pray outside an abortion clinic, being pardoned by our president, as they well should have been. To signing the Mexico City Policy Executive Order, to the Hyde Amendment coming back, and many important things. Mexico City Policy, of course, is about abortions in other countries. And why are we funding all of this? Why are we spending $700 million a year for Planned Parenthood, who's the nation's largest